The following podcast is a group of people who will be talking shit, drinking, using cuss words and living their best lives. The opinions or views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of their sponsors, supporters or anyone important outside of the four walls of the show. If you are not 18 or older, we suggest talking to your parents about this podcast before watching it and becoming scarred for life. We hope you will enjoy this and not get butthurt or become a keyboard warrior after taking it all in. Thank you for watching and supporting us on our journey.
Okay, yeah, we're recording. Whenever you guys are good, go ahead and get started.
All right. You hear good?
Yep, looking good.
Paul Wynn in the Wheel and Trigger studio. You, when was the first time you came to Myrtle Beach for a beach RC race?
That's a good question. It's probably 5 or 6 years ago, if I had to guess.
Was it for a Masters, or were you here when we did the INS finals?
I did an INS finals here, yep.
Okay.
So, yeah, I did that one, and then like probably three or four Masters.
Okay. So, you know, like, I respect your opinion of tracks and how races go, because you are literally at a new track or another race every weekend.
Right.
I mean, that is your life. What do you, like, how would you say this weekend's going compared to either stuff that we've done or other nationals? Like, what do you think? I mean, right now we're in the middle for time stamp situation here of the 2024 1/10 Off-Road Nationals at Beach Hobbies. Like, where do you compare this right now as, I don't know, I'd say in the last 5 years of a 10-scale race?
I would say it's a little more laid back, which is I actually prefer. It's a little bit more laid back. The way your facility's laid out, everything makes it more welcoming. Everyone's pitting right together. Everyone's, right next to the track. So, you hear all the action. So that's really cool. Some of the other nationals, you're pitting like in another room or you're off to the side. So, I would put this in, top 3 or 4 that I've been to in the last, 20 years. So,
awesome.
Yeah. And I think with the new regime at Roar, they're focusing a little more on bringing the fun back into it, not so strict, which is nice. I mean, we got to have rules, and it's nice to follow the rules, but it's also nice to have some fun and, bring it back to where it was. The golden years, what they call it. Those were, just amazing events, and you had a little bit of rivalry with the teams and stuff, which also made it fun. And, I noticed here, looking at the track on the right side, it's usually all the TLR guys, cheered on their guys, and on the left side is the, most of the associated guys. So to me, that's pretty cool, because that's how it was in the 90s. You'd always had, one side of the bleachers or, Losi or whoever, and then associated on the other side. So that's cool to see that, happening here.
It's funny you say that, because I didn't even really think of it, but now that I'm sitting, because I've been collecting cars over in the tech corner.
Right.
And now that you say that, like, in my mind, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even like put 2 and 2 together.
Right.
And we have a lot of that at Masters as well, but at Masters, like, I guess maybe people feel a little more comfortable to hoot and holler at their friends and stuff, because even though we take it very serious and people do come here to win that event, Roar has a different kind of seriousness. We hold the every brand and every driver holds the Roar titles at a very high level.
Sure.
If you win one, every brand wants to promote it. Every driver wants to say how many national titles they have. You and I know, because of travel and a lot of people listen to this, like, there's a lot of large races that those titles aren't Roar titles that are highly revered, DNC and Silver State, PMB, 10-scale Masters, maybe the Clash, Desert Classic. So there's some in the INS series, for that matter.
Sure.
But for whatever reason, and as I learned, I mean, we have to have a sanctioning body.
Yeah.
I believe if we don't, and that's why I'm trying my best, that we really just have an outlaw hobby.
Right.
So, like you said, I think Clayton has really, really done a great job in kind of dialing it back, taking over what was lost with the past regime.
Sure.
Or, I know we have a few people left over, but those people are the ones that want to help make it better.
Right.
So yeah, I'm stoked that you hold this race up there. I told him yesterday, I was like, everything's going real good, guys. Just don't F it up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like, let's just keep this going.
Sure.
If something is way out of whack on the rules, I understand. You got to make a call.
Yep.
But let's not have a tiebreaker issue.
Yeah.
Let's not say something or throw someone out not knowing, like we shouldn't have.
Right.
Everything we do right now, let's dot our I's and cross our T's.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
So
yeah, I think they've been doing a good job, and going back to the fun part, I think it's important they're doing it the way they're doing it. They're pulling it back, getting some fun back into it. You guys are obviously looking at the rules, because the rules were just a mess, and they're so dated. And then you can start reintroducing some of the new rules. You got new people, new manufacturers, like yourself, that have some input on, what's going on. Because, I mean, realistically, the rules are still from the 90s.
Right.
A lot
Very
of the
antiquated.
Stuff. Yeah, it is. So now they can start doing that, adapting some of the new rules, updating things. And I think people will be more accepting. The only thing that we don't have anymore is we don't have the club racing at the roar level anymore. So
right.
that was what made it difficult. Now is you go to these, outlaw races, as you would call them, and it's just a free for all, which makes it fun and easy. But when then you do go to Roar National, everyone freaks out.
Right.
It's like, well, there's still rules, and there always has been rules. It's just they're not enforced anymore. I mean, I would go to a club race when I was a kid, and you weren't even allowed in the track unless you were a Roar member. When you bought a car kit, it came with a Roar, card or a registration to fill out. So they had tech, they weighed the cars even at a club race. So it was just normal. So they would come to a race like this, and it was just normal. But now people come to this race and they're like, oh man, I got to weigh my car. I got to check my battery voltage. So, and I think that hurt Roar for a little while.
Sure.
So I think that's where coming back a little bit and making it fun again. It's getting people interested, and then I think the rules can start being enforced a little more. So I like it. I like what Clayton's doing and what you guys are doing.
Well, yeah, and I'm a very, very small piece. I mean, if anything, I'm probably the smallest at this point. I give my input. I help with the bid process with the Nationals, and I do have ideas. I do want to help with the oval side of things, because we want to bring oval back to the Roar National level.
For sure, yeah.
And then, we have ideas and stuff. Like I want to get more involved. Maybe this year, because I was awarded the Nationals, I haven't been able to be as involved in Roar as I will be next year.
Sure.
Because, leading up to this, I took my spot in November, I want to say.
Okay.
And so over the last 3-4 months, I've known I got this race. So, just planning for this, planning for Psycho and Silver State and DNC, whether I'm there or not, drivers sending product and I mean, just everything. Sure. I've got a million excuses of why. But yeah, I think the crew's good.
Yeah.
And everyone that's on Roar right now is passionate about it.
I agree.
So I don't think we're in a bad situation. Not everyone agrees, which is great. We all have a little bit different, but people are either compromising or working towards. There's no arguing at the moment. Everyone is like on the same page,
right?
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
So just to bring up a little bit of controversy from it, we got everyone's feathers ruffled with the whole truggy body situation, and I, for one, very public about it. I thought someone like yourself and a Chris Schaefer and anybody who's in the design side of things would have loved the challenge of fitting into a box and designing something new. And I also thought like it would have been advantageous for all the companies to actually have to have another body that everybody would have to buy to be Roar legal, financially speaking. I didn't think it was going to turn into what it did,
right?
To be honest. and I wouldn't say impartial, because I do not personally like both bodies looking so close together.
Right.
I think that we need some kind of separation. But what, being part of the manufacturer side of that, I'd love to hear, whatever process that you guys spoke of internally that, you can publicly speak of, and what you thought of when that came out. And I do want to preface this by saying, I do think we did it wrong by going out public before going to the manufacturers. I believe we screwed up.
Right.
For sure. But like, what was it like internally? Because I know there was quite a panic, it seemed like, because all the manufacturers instantly were like talking in email, and then there was a meeting set and all.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's when Techno, they were kind of responsible for coming up with this new style truggy body. And, it was funny, truggy buggy. Like, truggy's already a mix of a buggy and a truck.
Right.
So I always thought it was funny that people started calling it, a bruggy, because it's already both words. But, we like heard during the warm up they were running this body and it was an advantage. So we hurried and made one. And honestly, I thought it was just going to be a one-off thing. So I didn't measure anything. I just threw it together by hand, by eye. I made a body, and I'm like, okay, this will get us through the race, and then, everything will go back to normal. But everyone loved it as far as the guys that were racing them. It seemed like the guys that didn't like it were the people that weren't racing, and just wanted to, stir the pot and talk on the internet. So we're like, whoa, what's going on here? So it turned into, it's an advantage to run this body the way it is. It helps with pitting, makes it easier to pit the vehicles. So we're like, okay, well, it's here to stay. So we went through to the nationals at Chico, and we had the manufacturers meeting. And during the manufacturers meeting, everybody kind of agreed, well, this is when, Clayton was taking over Roar. He said, look, we're just trying to make it fun again. We're not going to require headlights and taillights anymore. If you want to run a front scoop, you can do that. And was trying to draw things back. So as a manufacturer, they asked us to just provide some bodies so they could take some, dimensions, and they were going to make the rules based on those particular bodies. And so we thought it was all done. And then, it pops up, hey, this is what they're trying to do. So we're all like, whoa, wait a minute here. You know? So that's where I think if you guys would have came to the manufacturers, it probably would have worked itself out a little better. I think we would have been a little more willing to work with it and explain our side of things, because the way Jason put it, he said, what if you had, like, say, touring car had to have a different body for every type of touring car there was? And we're like, yeah, that's a good point. That would, we'd have to have, 6, 7 different molds and different bodies for the, for the same style vehicle.
Right.
So we're like, okay, that makes sense. And we started looking at it, and, we already had, with JConcepts, we had 5 different truggy bodies, for
based on different brands.
Yeah, TLR, Mugen, this various other vehicles. And each body took a different way to mount it, and so it was a lot of molds and a lot of part numbers. And then when the truggy body came out, we decided to make our body just fit 5 different vehicles.
Yeah, with a couple different mounting kits.
Yeah, exactly. So that made it pretty easy for us, and it kind of streamlined things. So if we would have had to make that change again, within a year, it was going to be tough. Financially, it would have been a lot of money. So I think, again, that's where it would have been a little better if we were working behind the scenes together first, and then went forward with it. So
I think we missed the mark. In full transparency, I was in the Chico manufacturers meeting. I agreed with everything that was said. I definitely, like, what are we doing with these silly headlight and taillight rules? The scoops, based on the bruggy body is basically, why not let them?
Yeah.
I personally am fine with that. If that's what we're running, I'm fine with allowing that type of scenario. And honestly, I don't mind. As a pit man, as a racer, I like the bruggy bodies. But in the same token, I also feel like I don't care if everyone doesn't like it, if everyone has to run something that's within a certain rule set.
Sure.
And so that was like my mindset was like, okay, these guys are going to get to design something cool and new that looks more like a, let's quote unquote, a truck. And, you know, it would become this new thing that would morph into what truggy would be maybe moving forward.
Right.
You know, and I'm not a big, huge fan of a lot of the older truggy style bodies. I just didn't want to see a 7 scale and an 8 scale buggy in a sense, you know, like we're getting track time with different classes. You start going to these bigger races and that's all it is, a bigger buggy. But yeah, we definitely should have talked to the manufacturers before that, you know, as a committee that got released.
Yeah, I think that would have helped, and it could have, you know, maybe a few years down the road could have led to something. It's really tough because what we race now is they're race cars, and they don't really resemble anything, and they never really have. When it comes to 8-scale buggies, you know, 8-scale trucks, 10-scale buggies, they really don't resemble anything. They're just cool RC race cars you know, that work and are designed for what we do. The short course was awesome. That brought a lot of new people into it. So,
the most real looking
vehicle. That was amazing. And I would love for something like that to happen again. But I don't know if we could convert back, you know, that racing class. But I understand where you're coming from too. You know, I think the Techno Truggy body, our Truggy body were very square. They had beds, you know, they still resemble the truck. It just, the big arms and tires, you know, still make it look like a buggy. But then, and the first LFR body looked really cool. Chris did a good job with that. But then I don't know if Chris did this or not, but I almost think, you know, he was seeing the comments and people started putting buggy bodies on the actual truggy just to kind of be an ass, you know. At the Nationals, I saw multiple people do that. And it was just, I think it was for fun and out of spite, you know, look, if you're going to allow that, then this is what I'm going to do. And I think Chris designed that new body that he has, and it's a very buggy looking. And I think that is when that really kind of set some of the people over the edge a little bit. And that's his number one selling body. So people do like it.
Sure.
You know?
I mean,
so
people do speak.
Yeah. So I think Chris, you know, he saw what was going on and he did a good job and he had that body. For me, it was a little too far, but he obviously saw something that some of us didn't and he made it work. And now it's one of his best selling bodies, I believe.
Well, Proline, their version of, I forget what model of buggy bodies it was, but their version of the truck body was a buggy body too. It was basically an enlarged whatever that, I forget what,
Atlas
Axis. It was an enlarged Axis buggy body. Maybe stretched a little and down a little in the back, but I mean, I'll never forget looking at Aiden Horn's body. Like, it looked like it's just a bigger buggy.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so I will say that the cab forward stuff with the flatbeds and stuff is, in my opinion, if I have an opinion, you know, and it's just solely my opinion, are the best looking ones of them. I don't want the ones personally that look so much like a buggy that we're looking at an enlarged buggy.
And when they first came out, I hated those things.
I know.
TLR came out with the first one, and I was like, man, it looks like a tadpole or something, you know. But it grew on me, and I was like, well, you know, this is pretty cool. So
in the Techno one, nobody liked it when the first came. Everyone talked so bad. Oh, it's ugly, and then everyone runs them.
Yeah.
And every manufacturer's making them quite like it. And I mean, to Techno's credit, I mean, very innovative on stuff that they've done over the years, and that was maybe one of their best forward-thinking moves. I mean, it changed truggy. Changed pit stops. Changed the whole look of it. They are the ones. They got the ridges in the bed. I mean, it looks a little more like a truck, I think, than anybody else's.
Yeah, I agree.
And they also have that little bit wider front nose cone than most of them.
Yeah, the way they have their shock tower and shock setup, they're really wide. And they're really tall, so it gives them a lot of room to do that stuff. I mean, honestly, when I did our body, I took our 10-scale truck body and I poured one of those, and then I took the truggy body. I cut the cab off the 10-scale one, narrowed it, and then put it on top of one of our other bodies. I mean, it was just
Hodgepodge.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had 2 weeks to get it done for the nationals.
Wow.
It was pretty insane. And like I said, I didn't measure anything. I just went,
And there was nothing to measure for, like as
No.
far as rule wise.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So-
you could just go willy nilly on it
Yep.
and it wouldn't matter.
So I just made, a couple to fit, the Mayfield's truck and Adam Drake's truck and a few other guys. And I really didn't think it was going to be something that lasted. I personally didn't like them at first either, but it just turned into what it was. And everyone kind of just moved on and accepted it.
Yeah.
So, and it's the hard part, because the loudest people on the internet and try to, force their opinions, they usually don't even race anymore.
I was going to say, they're not
It's-
even going to be at a Roar
No.
race,
So that's the really tough part. But what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the tough
I
part.
had to cut myself off of replying that next day, and it shouldn't have been to begin with. I guess something touched a nerve, and I know better. I usually post and ghost, but for whatever reason, and I didn't post that by any means, but I did post my opinion on a couple posts, and yeah, I probably get myself in a little bit of hot water from time to time because I'm pretty opinionated. And
Yeah, but you're honest, and that's really the best you can ask for, because the guys that sugarcoat things and they're everybody's buddy to their face,
yeah,
and then they talk. I don't like that.
I don't
at all.
either.
And you're
I'll tell
straight
you
as an
to
arrow,
your
just-
face what I'll tell you behind your back,
Yeah.
and I want the same respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When that's the truggy stuff was happening with the new rules and stuff, I happened to go to a race, a local race in Florida, is one of Lance's races, and he was on the phone, and I pulled up and walked up, and I could hear he was like having a pretty heated discussion, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on here? And then I knew it was about the truggy thing, and then we both talked. He gave his honest opinion, I gave mine, and I told him, I go, look, I'm not here to argue, and I see what you guys are saying, and here's my side of it, and we just agreed to disagree, but we're still friends, and it was
That's the way it should be.
yeah, and that's the way it
You
should
should be able to have difference in
Yeah.
opinion. That goes for everything:
Yeah.
politics, religion,
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
Business.
yeah. It drives me nuts if it'd be like if I disagreed with it, so I would just go around the track telling everybody how dumb it was, but then tell
But those
Lance,
people exist.
yeah, and then they do, but and not tell Lance how I felt, and,
Right.
I'm not like that either. So.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I run into that almost every time I have a race. A lot of times you get the guys that are saying to other people, and I personally took it amongst myself at Masters of Dirt when everyone was not happy with the track, and I went and asked people directly. I mean, I had Mayfield on here,
Yep.
and I talked to him. I said, "What's your honest opinion of the track?" And most of the people said, "Dude, it's just really hard." They didn't say they didn't like it. They didn't say that they were mad. They were struggling. And to their credit, or to our credit, we made a track that even pros struggled at.
Sure.
I was kind of happy about that. We
Yeah.
never see that. I mean, when was the last time a 10 scale track they didn't on the first body or battery pack almost have it figured out?
Yeah, exactly.
They took them all day
Sure.
of practice. Now we've talked about this a few times. We should have ran practice differently. It could have helped everybody, and we will moving forward.
Mhm.
But then I would hear these people that were talking like, yeah, he says he's never coming back. Like someone would tell me, this guy told him he's never coming back to your track because the way the layout is, or it sucks or whatever. And I'll be the first to tell somebody, I'll help you pack your stuff up. If
Right.
like I don't want you here if you don't want to be here.
Yeah.
We try to provide you the best of whatever. But those people, like, if you got a problem, come tell me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bite you.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want you to motherfuck me, but I want
Right,
you to
yeah.
come and talk to me and be like, dude, please don't ever do that again. Or why did you do that? So that we can explain to them what maybe went into the process. Sometimes we don't do a good enough downside. We know that. Or sometimes a jump face is not as sharp as it needs to be. And,
Right.
and so you can't fix everything after it's already done.
Right.
We try to, the last thing we want is people
Yeah.
to be unhappy.
Yeah.
We-
I mean,
we
you
know
and
that.
I had that discussion, on the driver's stand. You asked me, and I told you, I'm like, this is one of the hardest tracks I've ever raced, and I'm struggling with it. And you're like, I take that as a compliment. That was what you told me. And
Yeah.
you're like, that's what your goal was, to make it tougher than a usual track, because it's a big race, and it's not supposed to be just a cakewalk. But I've told you in the past too that I always struggle on this track because of the shape.
Yeah.
Like the dimensional shape of it being deeper than it is wide, or it's almost basically square, and then the driver stand being tall. It makes, for me, I grew up racing on just little crates, parking lot racing.
Yeah.
So I'm just used to being lower and that type of view. So I always really struggle here, but it's my favorite dirt. It's like the people here are awesome. Your locals and stuff are super cool. So I always have a great time here. I always struggle on this track. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
other than I really think it's just that depth perception, and which part of it's age,
Yeah.
that's the first thing that goes, is that depth perception.
It's funny you told me you say depth perception. I told a story to Dakota and Thomas yesterday. We were talking about vision, and coming off of PMB last week, it was very tough. Like, not only did they use as much of the track as they've ever used, but it got real smoky and dusty a couple days.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's darker, Well, excuse me. 3 years ago at Silver State was my first time. For whatever reason, the lighting in there, it's well lit.
Yeah.
But for whatever it was like really like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say cloudy white, but like it washed out white in the corners for me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it real well. And I struggled a little bit. And I haven't had my eyes checked since I was under my parents' care.
Right.
I've got good eye vision. And so I get home, I told my wife, how'd you do? And I was like, I didn't do that worth a dang. I said, but you know what? I need to get my eyes checked. I have vision insurance, comes with something else we got.
Right.
And I never go. She's like, well, just go. I mean, you're not even using the benefit. So I go and I get dilated. They do all the stuff. And the doctor comes back afterwards and he said, I got good news and I got bad news. And I said, all right, what's the good news? He says, you got 20/20. It's like, oh, fuck. I said, what's the bad news? He's like, you got no excuse.
Right.
Because I told him why I was there,
Sure.
And so I think a lot of it for me is being a kind of fair weather racer now, not racing everywhere I go like I used to. And I was never like pro top level to begin with. I was always decent intermediate. If I'm not picking up the sticks or the radio, I'm falling behind.
Sure.
So like it took me all the way until the last race today to really get comfortable with my 10 scale stuff that I haven't driven much.
Sure.
So, that track, like you said, if you come from a place that's wider than deeper, or a driver stand that's half the height because it's 8 feet tall from the ground.
Okay.
And if you come from something from different than that, I mean, Ty Testman told me the first time he came for an INS, he's like, why did you do that? I was like, well, we had to based on our dimensions, and the fire marshal wouldn't let me put a driver stand on the back because of egress.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. Like we wanted to go wide, that we were going to have pits come down like where we sometimes put temporary pits down the front wall, and then it was going to be, something where the pits are now, but we were going to like do 2 rows down that wall instead of 1, and it was going to be wide like traditional track. But I'm actually happy it turned out the way it did, so we weren't a cookie cutter, or I don't want to say that, but like a similar track to other people.
Yeah, it wasn't
we
just
have
the same track
unique,
in a different spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 85 by 72. So like you said, it's more square than rectangle, but that depth coming at you, because we have to do a lot more coming at you than sideways and stuff like that to get good layouts in there.
Which I could tell with this layout, to me it looked like you guys were conscious about that. Like you definitely tried to limit the amount of stuff that has coming at you. It's more left to right than some of your other layouts. So I wasn't sure if that was something you did on purpose for the roar nats, but to me, I mean, I haven't driven at this race, but it looks a little more traditional as far as the layout goes. And I like that it doesn't have a lot of 180s. It's more carousels and, off-camera stuff. So I actually really like the layout. I just know that back section, I would be so in trouble.
It's tough. The guys that are really good at it are able to just float down into that. And I mean, however many laps I've done, I maybe have done it once. and probably didn't even mean to do it. I did it on accident. But that section's the make or break. Every track, I think, needs a make or break. Sure. It's what fun's a racetrack without a challenging section. Some people are struggling at the double coming at us. Yes. The left hand coming at us turn. And then obviously the bell's been rung a few times. Oh, yeah. And there's a new bell for tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. Cool.
I've had a couple guys told me they're not even trying to cut it. it's one of those things where you think you got it clear, and it just bam, you hit the fence. So it's like again, it goes back to that depth perception. It's just a little bit different. So
one guy told Lucas, "Can you just move it like a foot?" And he's like, "No, because you're going to cut it another foot."
Right.
Like just race around it, just like everyone has to. And I get it. I mean, the last thing we want, we would never purposely try to break cars.
Sure.
Like that's not our thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love the race. The common racers like, well, at least the hobby shop's going to be making money.
You're right.
Well, number one, you got to have the parts, and right now, not all the parts for all the cars are available.
Sure.
So I don't want to put anyone in a bad situation. And number two, yes, we make money on parts, but this is Nats. 99% of these guys have their parts.
Right.
We're not making money on that. So we would never try to do it. And the last thing we want to do is make people have to work harder. But we do want it challenging. Lucas is very good at like coming up. He does all the track designs. I have final approval.
Right.
That's our deal. Like you can give it to me and you can argue with me until your face is blue, but I'm going to say no or yes or change this.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good at working together.
Yeah.
He's very militant about his tracks.
Sure.
Like that you can see on the layout if you look on the back of the driver's stand and you count bricks. Like it's almost a scale.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's very, very much the scale. And like he'll come out there, and if we put dirt in the wrong spot, we're moving dirt. He does not allow it to be not what he drew.
Gotcha.
So it's good because we don't have everybody saying, "Hey, this would be cool if you did," or no,
you would never finish.
Yeah,
either.
we used to be like that.
Yeah.
Now we can finish a track with 3 people in 2 days, start to finish, and not have to worry about it.
Yeah,
it's hard work, but it gets done.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be track manager, and I've done all that stuff, and I know what you're saying. Like you get out there, you start building something, and then everyone's like, let's do this, let's do that. And it's, 4 or 5 days go by and you're just like, no, we can't do this anymore.
We started like that. Yeah. And once we learned there was only 2 ways to do it. Either you do it the way you say you're going to do it and follow it to a T, or you start and then you just put stuff in as you go and then you work your way out. Mm-hmm. And we found that you waste at least a day by not having a plan.
Yeah.
So we, on our crew, on the amount of people we have, like we need to get it done.
Sure.
And it's just, like I said, we work harder, we work smarter, but we get it done. We don't have no influence from outside. So where are you originally from? Florida?
I am. Yeah. Originally from, Miami, Hialeah, which is funny. They're like, you don't speak Spanish? I'm like, nope. But, that was a really long time ago. So, but yeah, it was originally Miami, moved up to Fort Lauderdale, and that's where I kind of got my start in racing. It was 85. My dad started to race, and then the end of 85, 86 is when I started racing. So,
and then, as you mentioned before, your background early on was on-road.
Yeah, I've done it all. And that was the other cool thing is, the 80s and 90s, there wasn't a lot of races happening. A lot of club racing, but not a lot of big races. So you raced whatever you could. I've raced on-road, off-road, dirt oval. I've done 8-scale on-road, 10-scale on-road. I've done a little bit of 8-scale off-road, but it's too much work, so I don't really care for it. But, I've done it all. So, I started an off-road, and then I started running on-road, and that's where I kind of excelled. So I did really well on on-road, and that's when I kind of began to get picked up with Associated, got on the travel team, kind of started to do it semi-professionally. And but like I said, we all did everything. We raced everything we could. So,
did you have or do you have a preference of like a style of racing now?
If money was no object, you could just race whatever you wanted. It would probably be nitro on-road.
That's pretty wicked. I've not got to do that yet, but I'm watching it's awesome.
If you ever get a chance to drive an 8-scale on-road car or even a 200mm sedan, it's just amazing. The cars are just so dialed.
Yeah.
The harder you drive them, the better they handle. So you're just going for it. It's painful when you do crash. It's almost, when you crash an 8-scale, it's almost like a new kit.
Wow.
But it's the rush you get. You come onto the straightaway, you hit that sweeper, that 2-speed kicks in, and you just have a grin on your face. You're like, this is badass. And And that's even touring car, 10 scale touring cars, kind of the same way. I took a huge break from touring car when I went to work for JConcepts. I ran a little bit of touring car and then, stopped racing and then did off-road and got back into off-road because that's, what we specialized in. And then Jason wanted to do a touring car potty, so I got to go back and do it, years later. And that first time, came around the sweeper, hit the straightaway with a, 4.5 in my car, and I'm just like, wow, this is badass. This is fun. So I like the rhythm of on-road. You get into this rhythm, and it just feels really good, really natural. Whereas off-road, it's a lot more technical, and you got to really concentrate on every little thing. Whereas on-road, it's more rhythm and, maintaining the car and the pace. It's very easy to overdrive an on-road car. And for me, with my skill levels, dwindling a little bit, I was always really good at maintaining my tires and my car. So I always did really well. The kids would come in super fast, just blowing your doors off. But,
weren't
a minute
conserving
in,
anything.
Yeah, their tires are heated up. They're spinning out. Their motors are, cooking. So that always was kind of an advantage for me in on-road. So.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because this layout right here, other than the straightaway to the tabletop to the kicker of the triple, everything else, the downside of the triple all the way around is almost on-road feeling.
Yeah.
Because it's all a flow. You're on throttle, you're like not full punch. Everything is just a nice flow of an on-road with some jumps in it. This layout to me is very much an on-road feel.
Yeah.
With the exception of that back left section.
Right.
So what made you, did you go to school for engineering or for CAD, or are you self-taught?
No, actually just self-taught. I started racing when I was 12, and, I didn't want my dad working on any of my stuff. Typical kid. I didn't think my dad knew anything. I always knew better type of stuff.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the case, but that's just the way I felt. And I was always painting bodies just to paint bodies. We'd go into the hobby shop and they have like a clearance section, and I would see a body and we're like, yeah, let's get it. And, I would paint it. And then I started modifying the cars and, getting hot trick parts and all these different, manufacturer parts. And, they really didn't make the car any better, probably worse actually, but that was the fun part.
Sure.
So I was always just into that side of it. And, just once I became a team driver and all that kind of stuff, I always wanted my cars to look professional, everything look the way it should look. And, I always kind of joke, I'm like, oh, you never see an ugly car in the winter circle. So that was one of my things. And I had to always do my own thing. And then eventually, I got to the point where I was going to work for my dad. He had his own business. It was a distribution business, and he ended up selling it. So I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? And, so then I talked to, some various sponsors, and, Schumacher was somewhat local, and I was running for them at the time. So Robin, gave me a chance, and I went to work and, started at the bottom, packing boxes, sweeping floors, doing all that sort of thing. And then worked my way up to team manager, doing sales, on the phone every day. And then, traveling to races, racing professionally. And then eventually Jason started JConcepts, and we grew up racing together in the 90s. And he's like, hey, you want to give this a shot? And I had no clue what we were even going to do. And he's like, all right, well, we're going to have you make bodies. I'm like, I've never, made a body, but I was good with a Dremel and, good with making RC parts. So he, taught me, and that was it.
Have you been with JConcepts since like the beginning? Like he started it, and
he started in 2003. He was already making bodies for some various companies, manufacturers. So he was doing that kind of behind the scenes and making bodies for different companies. So he had some of the equipment already. So then he decided to make the 4-wheel drive conversion kit, as well as he made a 10 scale body for the B4. And that was 2003. So he went to the Worlds, him and Brad Rouse put together this conversion kit for a TC3 that made it an off-road car. And then he also debuted their 10 scale off-road body for the B4. Everybody loved it. And that's when they decided to start the company, officially. And I think it was 2004 when they started. And then I came on at the end of 2006, 2007 is when I started with them.
Okay. So not too long. I mean, they had a jump start, but
yeah, they were
you've
working
been
out
there.
of their house, the garage, and then they got just a small little, shop. And that's where I started with them in the little shop there.
Nice. So what would you be considered like head engineer, or is Jason still hands-on with designing stuff now?
We have we have several people that do the engineering side of thing, drawing stuff. Jason obviously still does a lot of that, but he's doing a little bit less now. All the bodies and stuff originally were all done by hand. I would sketch something out, draw something out, or just start working with, whatever, and, make a body, try to make it look cool, make it fit a car. And eventually we got to where you could start doing 3D printing and things like that. So I still finish everything by hand. But now we have the ability to 3D print and start there.
Yeah, give you
base,
a good base.
And everyone thinks that's easy, but the drawing of the bodies is not hard, but it takes a lot of skill to know the programs and stuff. The problem is you don't have the car in the drawing,
especially when they're brand new and everything.
So
else.
that's the part that people don't understand is when the B7 comes out, you just don't have a B7 in the CAD,
right?
So you either have to draw it part by part, or you have to scan it, or there's a lot of work that goes into it, so it makes it really tough. So originally what I would do is I would make my original body for whatever car it was. So say like a B4, I'd make a B4 body, and that would be by hand, fit the car. Then I would just take that one and then start modifying it to fit other cars. So a lot of work, but that's how you would do it. Now we'll get one car drawn, at least the main parts of it drawn in the computer. You draw the body, you put it on the car, everything's good. Then I can manipulate that again to fit a Losi or, a Schumacher or whatever it is.
Right.
So that's kind of the road we go down. It's easier for some of the manufacturers, especially like now that Horizon, has TLR and Proline. They have a car they've already drawn, so they can draw a body to fit the car in the computer and then pop it out. We don't have that ability, or we can, but it takes a lot of time and effort.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at now.
I mean, you have enough bodies now that any car that comes out, you can get one of your bodies that's pretty close, pop out a body, and then start carving to get the dimensions without having to scan. I mean, obviously, a lot of these reiterations of a car are very similar dimensions.
They are, yep.
And until there's a full overhaul, so you've got multiple years in multiple versions of the same car to just keep changing the body to have a new style, or maybe a whole new body, but the actual fitment is going to be the same, or close to, very close to.
Yeah, like our B6 body, the original B6 body, we used the same body through 4 versions of the car, and just had to make a few little tweaks to clear, a spur gear hump,
fan mounts and stuff like that. That was big, because for the longest time you couldn't put a fan back there.
Exactly.
It's like, what are we doing there?
So that was easy. And then we finally made all new bodies for the B6.4, and then we had no idea about the B7.
Oh man.
We used to kind of have inside information because I've been a long time associated driver, and Jason as well. And so we'd kind of know what was coming, and the B7, we had no idea.
Area 51, man.
Oh, yeah. So we were
it's real.
Damn, we just made this new 0.4 body, and now we got to do a whole new body again.
Oh, man. I got to grab another beer.
Sure.
Yeah, I always wonder, we talk about that in the industry a lot. It's like, it'd be nice if... And I understand, like I'm going to tell you this by saying I understand why they do it, but it pisses me off. Like, when you can't get something or a lot of parts, normally it means, okay, there's a new car coming out. Mm-hmm. Like, you just know that. But in the same token, They could give us, the people that buy from them, a pretty good warning, like,
Sure.
hey, half the parts on this car, here's the parts that are going to go onto the B7, here's the ones that aren't. Don't overload.
Right.
You know, but I also understand, like, they might have a shit ton of parts in their warehouse.
Yeah.
Or the distributor might have it, and they've committed to buying X amount. And so then little shops like us, like, it's eBay Gold, but how long are we going to house it?
Yeah.
You know? So it's one of those scenarios where you're kind of, you want that inside track so you're not stuck with dead inventory. But they can't give it to you.
Right.
You know, they can't tell you that information because they, you know, it's under lock and key. You know, they're still testing stuff. You know, no one actually knows.
Yeah.
That's I think that's part of the industry that a lot of people are. That'd probably be one of the things that I hear a lot of is like, man, I wish I would have known. I wouldn't have bought this kit a month ago. Or if you do a sale and everyone thinks, oh, they're coming out with something new, and then you don't sell. You know, we've done that before.
Yeah.
People think, or they knew before I did, like, oh, there's a new car coming out. They're blowing stuff out.
Right.
Like, no, we're just overloaded, and we're a lot. You know, map pricing got removed.
Yeah.
Well, that should be our sign.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
yeah, it's.
It's
know,
so tough now for
it's
you
so
guys.
tough.
It's so tough for the retail shops. I mean, it was easy in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s when things started changing because you really only had TLR and Associated. You know, you had a little sprinkle of this or that, but for the most part, you know, I think the B4 had 10 years.
Yeah.
The RC10, however many years it was. So it you know, the TLRs, you know, they had a long run with theirs, but now with the way that it's so easy to draw and build a car, that they can do it in, you know, 12 to 18 months and you don't know about it. When I was with Associated in the 90s, I mean, we would go to every big race. They had a new car and they'd stay on Monday and they'd run the new car.
When everyone's gone.
Yep. And nobody ever knew about it because there was no internet.
Right.
So nobody knew about the car. So the car would be in development for a year and a half, 2
wild.
years. Yeah. And now it's not like that. You know, the engineers just draw this car, what they think is going to be really good. Even the team drivers a lot of them don't know about it. And then they show up and they're like, oh, here's a new car. You know, probably nobody knows about this. And, you know, the B7 has been around actually for a little while. And they had it before the Worlds. And they did a test session, and Dustin showed up with his car ready to go, and they handed him the B7. He's like, "What the fuck?" You know, I didn't even know about this car.
Wow.
So it's still, you know, it's still stuff like that happens.
Yeah. And I applaud them for being able to like keep that a secret.
Yeah,
because,
they did a really good job with that one.
Yeah. People always say, like, there's got to be a new car because they're out of parts. Well, no, they're actually out of parts. Like, sometimes they're just out of parts. You know, we spoke about this, me and Thomas last night, about the TLR side of things and the fact that, you know, a lot of people don't understand the struggles when there's, you know, these overseas vendors could be going through something. For instance, you know, Taiwan just had some huge earthquakes. That I'm not saying that affected the manufacturing districts or whatnot, but it could have. Like,
Right.
So, you know, one little ripple can set back an industry like ours. That's a very niche and small industry in the grand scheme of things.
It is.
Months,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, as a distributor of S-Works, I promise my customers and dealers, like, yes, we're going to keep a good stock as long as I can get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and that, we do everything we can on our side, and I know the owner does everything that they can to get it, but there's always going to be something.
Sure.
You know, it kind of, you know, this is a question I have, and you know, if you can't answer it, you don't have to. But if you can, I would really love to know. Someone like myself who does purchase and makes large orders and works with some manufacturers, why is it so hard sometimes to get the top tires that you guys are so well known for? Like we always say, Lucas says it all the time, like green reflex, it's like printing money at race time events, right? But they're so hard to get. I mean, between the few vendors, obviously, you know, back orders at A-Main and Horizon and, you know, shops like myself who always have 100 on back order, you know, just because we know we're going to need them. Like in my mind, as a this is just me being a dummy who's like, order more. Like, if a manufacturer somewhere is making these tires for you and they can't keep up, I mean, wouldn't it be advantageous for them to make another line so that they can do double the manufacturing? And this is what I don't understand, because we talked just a little bit about silver smoothies. Like you said, there's thousands on back order of these things, and we would love to. All of our shops would love to have them stocked. What's causing like that kind of? Because I mean, it's like making money for you guys.
Yeah.
I know JConcepts wants those tires here.
That's what we try to explain to people. We're like, look, if us not having that stuff, we're not making money.
Right.
I've seen people actually post like, oh, they're holding off and not. It's like, no.
For the team drivers only. They're hoarding.
It's like, no. Look, we would love to have it and sell it and make money. And a lot of people think, I mean, I'm sure you get this too. They think a tire costs 20 cents or 50 cents or, pennies. And it's like,
it doesn't?
Yeah, exactly. That's not the case at all. But what it is, I think a lot of it is we have a proprietary rubber. You can only make so much so fast. And then, let's just say green compound, our super soft, most, popular compound for 8-scale reflexes and whatnot. But we, the amount of SKU numbers we have. So we have, you got 10-scale dirt tire, pin tires. You have 10-scale slick tires. You have 8-scale, all these different patterns. So you have 20 or 30 different part numbers that use all the same rubber.
Right.
Well, they can only make so much rubber. And we decided, we made a decision that this rubber is the best rubber, and we're not going to veer from that. So it would be easy to just use a rubber from, our vendors, a Chinese vendor or Taiwanese vendor to make enough tires, and they could make that stuff all day, but it's just not as good.
Right.
It's cheaper. We could make a lot of it, but it's just not as good. So, someone at the office has to decide, okay, do I make 50,000 reflexes, or do I make 10,000 reflexes, 1,000 double Ds, goosebumps, just you have to pick and choose all these different patterns.
You're in the dirt oval industry, 10-scale off-road, drag racing, crawling, in 8-scale off-road. Like, I get, so
that's the hardest part.
So basically what
you
you're
have
saying
to
is
allocate
you allocate
this
the rubber
to all these different, tires. And us racers, we're only into what we're into. We don't care. We don't give a shit about that guy or
which
this
in
guy.
all reality, everybody outside of just the racing is where the good money comes from.
Money is, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, the guys that just race 8-scale, they're like, why don't you just make 20,000 reflexes? And it's like, well, we have to make the dirt oval guys happy. We have to make the off-road 10-scale guys happy. And, so it's just such a balancing act, and it's really, really tough. So that's been the hardest part, is trying to decide what to make, when to make. And people don't realize there's shelf life with the raw materials, how quickly you can get it there, get it back, that sort of thing. And then I'm sure you know this, but COVID really effed everything.
That set a lot of people back.
Set a lot of people back. Plus, it raised the cost of just about everything. Yep. But just like everything, it doesn't come back down.
Which still makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
My wife and I talk about that all the time.
So that's another thing is, we're trying really hard to not raise prices, but the raw materials, the manufacturing, everything is just keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And you're trying not to pass it along. Just like a track owner. I've been paying $15, $20 an entry for 20 something years. It's like, how do you guys not raise the price for entries?
Right.
But you can't, because people just,
they'll stop coming.
Yeah, they'll stop coming. So that's the part that your expenses keep going up, inflation.
If you don't stay consistent, people will find something else to spend their money on. And You know, there's a good mix of people that understand and don't understand
Sure.
that. I think if you own your own business or are in a part of a company that understands purchasing, you know this. If you are just an employee and make decent money and you can afford, you know, you don't ever worry about food on your table or paying a home bill, you probably are not paying too much attention.
Right.
But if you are on a budget and you work real hard, you also you're the and you're not making enough money to really race and take care of your family, which we know there's a lot of that.
Sure.
Those people notice, but are going to pick and choose based on pricing.
Right.
So there's like different classes of people that understand or don't understand, and then there's just assholes that just don't care what you're there. And I say this all the time: their dollars are more important than ours.
Yeah.
And you know, that to me is always the. We had someone come in the other day, just quick. They wanted to return this little F28 AE Formula One car they bought.
Right.
And I look at it and I was like, well, what's wrong with it? And the person said, well, nothing. I didn't like it. And in my mind, the first thing I want to say is we're not Walmart.
Right.
Okay. Or Amazon. Like I appreciate your business and I would love to just say, hey, here's a full refund or here's gift card to buy it back. But is he going to take this one home and not like it and bring it back? Like you have to set your foot down. Like
Sure.
we're still a mom and pop,
Right.
business.
Exactly.
A lot of people think we're bigger than we are. We're just a big hobby shop with a track, and
Sure.
we love racing. So we can't just take everything on the chin.
Yeah.
You know, to those people that do, good for you. I don't know how,
Yeah.
but you know, as companies, small companies, we have to like control our expenses and
Sure.
our loss and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says, "Oh, just write it off." Well, you still had to spend the money.
Yep.
That's one of the biggest cop outs of anything when it comes to money. You still had to spend the money.
Right.
You know, yes, it's a write off, but you still, that
Yeah.
money's gone.
It's gone. Exactly.
You can't use it on something more important.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
that's been the tough part with this, hobby, sport industry. Like everyone just thinks we're making millions of dollars and, it's so easy, it's so cheap and pennies to the dollar, but it's, it's really affecting our cost and we're doing our best to keep it affordable. But at some point you can't, you have to raise prices and, do things a little bit differently. So,
yeah. Are you part of the tire design as well? Do you help with that or?
no, I mean, I give my input. Actually the Reflex was one of the tires I recommended based off a tire from the 90s. I won't say exactly, but people probably, if they raced back
They
then,
were around, I know.
they know what tire that was based off of. And,
Sure.
I when I saw that tire, I'm like, you know what? This tire was so universal. It was such a big, popular tire. I'm like, this would be the perfect 8-scale tire, because it's full drive. It's the same tires front and rear. And so Jason's like, yeah, let's do it. So he, tweaked it and made it work for an 8-scale, and it's been
Is that the most successful tire ever of JConcepts? Like,
it's got to be one of the top 3.
What would the other 2 be if you had to say
I
the
would
top
say
3?
the Dirt Web.
That was popular.
That was
Very popular.
huge, which was a Brian Kinwald tire. Rest in peace, Brian Kinwald. But his ideas were so off the wall, and he would send you all these crazy ideas. He would actually just take tires and make them by hand. He would take all these different tires, cut them up, chop them up, glue them together, go out and run them. Like, here you go. This is dial. And that would be, the Dirt Web was one of his tires. And Jason, drew it up in the computer, made it right. And the thing was just amazing. So I would say the Reflex, the Dirt Web, the Ellipse was also, pretty darn popular as well. And then the Old Faithful Dirt Webs, what am I trying to think of?
Barcodes or
No, it was the now I'm drawing a blank. Our pin tire for off-road, the Double D.
Double D's.
The Double D was, again, that was, loosely based off like the whole shot, because the whole shot for Proline was, that was just an amazing
When I first started
tire.
racing A-scale, like that was my
Yeah.
go-to
Yeah,
for
like
sure.
they had the Knuckles or something. That was before my off-road time for 8-scale,
Mhm.
and then for 10-scale was the whole shot. And that was just the staple tires. And, you know, of course we want to do the same thing. So we did a double D, which was our staple tire for 10 scale, and then 8 scale, it, you know, was the Reflex. So
I would assume, unless something comes out that's just miles better, that the Reflex will be JConcepts' best-selling tire of all time at some point. Because, I mean, it's almost like, okay, here comes the Recon, you run it. Well, it's not working as good as a Reflex on this condition. Just throw Reflexes on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go to a new track, you try a Falcon. It's good in this condition, but it's not good when it gets like this. Throw on a Reflex.
Yep.
It's like it's almost a cure-all if the conditions don't meet a specific tire.
Sure.
You just throw on a Reflex.
I mean, that happened this past, you know, 2 weeks ago at P&B. You know, the Falcon and the Dirt Bite are the two, you know, new tires that we just released for 8 scale. Everybody had to have them, got to run them, you know, and we couldn't get enough made. And
Yeah, I haven't even been able to get Falcons yet.
Yeah,
I've got 100 on order with Allison. I was like, I want these.
Sure, we've had so few of them. And, you know, I get to the race, and we actually got a box in, shipped to the hotel, you know, Thursday. And guess what? We ended up on Reflexes. I mean,
which
it just...
I did actually get before P&B, which I was
Okay.
very happy about. We sold a lot of those.
Yeah.
And it's literally, for all you hobby shops out there with any 8-scale track around that, you want people to buy tires from you, make sure you're stocking Reflexes. It's going to hurt me because now it's going to make it harder for me to get. But stock Reflexes. So, you know, I'm going to preface this with I'm a company guy. I love all the companies. You know, I work with you guys. I work with Proline. I work with all the chassis manufacturers. I want to work with everybody. I'm a love peaceful kind of guy. But I feel like, in a way, that the JConcepts model of team has kind of changed things in a way for people like myself who are willing to stock. Okay. And I understand, like, it ebbs and flows. There's going to be, you know, ways business have to be done for JConcepts to make money, for, you know, dealers, distributors. You know, we've been a stocking dealer for a long time, but their teams are getting bigger. Not just JConcepts. This isn't like a dig at a company, your company, but as a whole, there's a lot of sponsorship. And everyone's trying to get that piece, you know, get the guy that's going to be loyal to them because, you know, you're going to give them a discount or whatever. So do you like think about, or do you guys have internal discussions about how can we help hobby shops want and stock more, especially when they have tracks? Because for a long time, I was thinking of like a way of trying to, I call it like a coupon system or something, where instead of you sponsoring somebody in my area or in, you know, Hoosier RC area, you say, we're going to send you 10 or 5 per month, so 60 coupons a year that you can give at your local shop. They're going to know, and they can redeem something like that to get an extra 5% off on whatever that was sold or whatever, so that they can also help service your team members and still make something rather than nothing.
Right.
Because for me, like, we're a stocker. We stock a lot of smoothies. We stock a lot of the A-scale tires. We stock some oval stuff, the splitter. Are they splitters?
The Swiper
Sprinters.
and the Sprinters, yep.
So we stock Sprinters. We ship a lot of those and sell a lot of those locally. So, like, we stock a lot of JConcepts. Sure. And then you'll have I'm not counting master or nationals, because I expect people to show up at national sponsored. Yeah. But like when you have a bigger race and you got guys that are kind of mid-level or not even lower than that and showing up and they, you know, they're sponsored. Let's just call it. We're all doing. I mean, I'm a little bit part of the problem. I try to vet it. Mm-hmm. I know it's tough with the amount of requests that you guys are probably getting. Do you have in your mind, like, is there a fix in the future or that we can all do together to try and help mitigate that?
I think there's going to have to be, and it is discussed every year. You know, it is discussed. We haven't come up with an answer quite yet, but where it all started is there's a lot of Chinese manufacturers that make RC stuff, and it's funny because I'm even seeing these Facebook pages now that say, it just says RC Supply or, you know, something to that effect.
Yeah, it's so crude. Like they're just
and it's anybody can go to these companies and put their name on the tire and sell the tire. So anyway, in 2009, 2010, a particular brand came in and they had these cheap tires. They couldn't get distribution. So their idea was to just sponsor anybody and everybody at 50 off. So they're just selling direct. And we're like, the tires aren't that good. We're not going to worry about it. And it started to affect us. Proline, AKA, you know, JConcepts, the mainstay tires were like, you know, this is starting to affect us a little bit. So it forced Proline, AKA, and ourselves to start sponsoring some more people. And it just snowballed after that. You know, there's probably a dozen different Chinese manufacturers that will sell you tires. I mean, they've shipped us tires that are a copy of our tire and said, hey, if you want these, we'll put your name on them. We're like, they're our tires. You just copied them. And they're cheap and easy. And so I can see where, you know, people are like, oh, you know, shit, I'll just
start my own brand.
Yeah, I'll just start my own brand. And it's happening. So that's been the hard part for us. So every time we want to downsize, another company pops up. So, you know, I think we have to get together with the dealers and the distributors and the other manufacturers and try to make this happen. But at the same time, I think you almost kind of feel like you're showing weakness if you try to work with these companies. Like, oh, they're coming to us. They must be struggling to try. And that's not the case. We're trying to make it better for everybody, and especially for you guys, the dealers. But at the same time, you're kind of scared to do it. So I agree with you. Something has to be done. And maybe talking to the dealers and coming up with ideas like you have, maybe that's what we need to do. But I talked to, I don't remember who it was. It was a long time ago, maybe 8-10 years ago. I went to a race and they were heavily involved with motocross, and they had a motocross shop. They supported satellite teams. They did all that stuff. And they said that RC was going down the same path. Like, they had this exact same issues, and it's really messy for them as well. And what's interesting is that particular person now owns a track, owns a hobby shop, and is doing all RC now, and it got out of the motocross side of things. So it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what the answer is. And that's why I asked you, because there's I don't want to call it a pandemic of sponsorships, but it is something that, like, and we all say it, a sponsorship when I was growing up racing quarter midgets and motorcycles and whatnot, it meant something because somebody came to you, or you sent a resume in based on results, not based on, hey, I'm just looking to be like a loyal customer.
Sure.
You know, loyal customers are great, but you want, like, we don't do monthly coupon codes like other websites do, right? So Beach RC, we value loyalty, and we give our loyalty through our loyalty program, not, hey, we're going to give you 20% off just to order from us. We're going to give you that or more off because you spend money with us and support and help us grow. And we're in this kind of like era of RC, I believe, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. I don't want anyone to think that anyone else thinks like this. But I believe we're in this RC period where we all need to band together in a sense. I don't want people not to race, but I also want people to understand it's not our responsibility to make it cheap enough for you to afford it.
Yes.
It's a performance-led industry. Okay, this is not bashing. This isn't, we do this to win. You race to win, and racing's not cheap in any form.
No.
This just is a cheaper form of racing.
Sure.
So if you want to be competitive, if it means you got to pay full price and not be sponsored, and you only get to race once a month instead of 3 times a month, sometimes that's the hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not saying that I don't want to be a hypocrite, because we have to do it a little bit with the brands that I
Sure.
work with as well. I don't have a solution other than, because if you and I and 5 other major brands were to band together and say, look, we're gonna cut back 25% next year, and then maybe 25% the year after, and then this is where we want to be at. And everyone's kind of like, great.
Right.
There's 2 or 3 other companies that are gonna be like, fuck you guys.
Mhm.
I'm taking everything you're letting go.
Yep.
And now we're worried that our market share is going to go away and
That's
someone's
exactly
going to grow.
what's- yeah,
That's the problem.
that is the problem. 100%.
So how do we, at that point, okay, so switch gears from, okay, we know we need these contracted customers in a sense. We're going to call them that. But how do we keep loyalty at a premium, right? Because if JConcepts isn't, sponsored driver A feels like, okay, this tire company is going to give me 75 off. JConcepts only give me 50 off. We're all talking off this retail price that really no one ever pays, right? It's only off of retail, not MAP. And no one understands that part. And then, so they go over here, but they were only with you for 8 months of their 12-month contract. So I brought this up to Thomas last night when we were doing our podcast, and I said, 5 years ago, I started a Facebook group page called RC Blacklist that I haven't invited anybody to yet. This is a group meant for people like you and Jason and me and Thomas and Jason Snyder and anyone in a manufacturing that has to sponsor people. Like, we need to be posting about who's unloyal.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that, okay, we sponsor a lot of people, but why would you want to sponsor a guy that just bailed on me 6 months in because he didn't like the product, that he didn't test before he wanted to be sponsored, just sends out letters to 10 companies and, we actually took them on or something, right? So would that be beneficial for the industry for us all to have something, some kind of dialogue to at least weed out the ones that are going to put a black mark, try to slander us for trying to help them and they're not happy with it? Like, is that needed?
I think it is. When I worked at Schumacher, one of my sales manager that I worked with, he was in the bike industry for a little while, and they were still doing bike shows. Like, we had the hobby shows and stuff in Chicago, and they were doing that with bikes. And he said that all the manufacturers got together at these shows. They'd have 2 shows a year, and they would do exactly that. They would, first thing they would do, which was really cool, RC does the exact opposite, is they would determine the market each year. So they're like, hey guys, this is where we think everything should go. We should all work together on going, this direction. And so, that's beach cruisers and whatever, fat tire bikes. That's what we should concentrate on. Let's go for it and everybody give it your best shot. And, that's what we'll do. RC is the opposite. They you got a 24 scale? Well, we're doing a 28 scale. We got a 16 scale? We're doing 18 scale. And it's just all over the place. Everyone's trying to do something completely different.
Trying to get that niche.
It's like, it's already a niche hobby.
Right.
And it's like, let's work together.
We're dividing,
yeah. And so I think that would be, that's something that the RC industry, I would benefit from. And then secondly, you could then control, like you said, a blacklist, or, at least work together with the drivers. And that used to happen in the past. And sometimes it still does. We still I talk to Thomas at these races, and, I'll be like, hey, what was the deal with this guy? And he'll explain it. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, we had the same problem with that guy also. But then we don't really do a whole lot with it. We will normally, what we do is, if you have a contract with somebody and the year's not finished, we won't take you on. We'll just say, hey, you got to reapply, in November, and this is, the steps we go through. So it does happen on a small scale, but it's only amongst friends, like, Thomas and myself and Jason, or, at the time when Daniel was doing the Pro Line stuff, we would talk. So the industry's small, we all talk to each
Right.
other. But it would be much better if it was a formal thing, like, you're discussing, and it would help for sure.
I think it would just be real simple to be like, okay, just so everybody knows, you post in this group that everyone's a part of, and you could go back to it for reference. And I want to keep these contracted customers honest. You shouldn't be able to, if you're a sponsored driver, just bounce between companies because you get a better deal. We need loyalty, at least for what you sign a paper for. I mean, what good is a contract if we as companies aren't going to uphold it?
Right.
And, they expect us to uphold the pricing for them for a full year,
Exactly.
right? Or 2 years.
Sure.
So if they were to come to my website 6 months later and I've turned their pricing off for no other reason of, like, I just don't want to give them the pricing anymore, that's me bailing out of a contract. And for them to leave 6 months into a contract because they just couldn't get the tire to work or chassis to work or something like that, that's them bailing out. And a lot of times I feel like people just send out letters to as many people as they can, hoping to get something back. And being sponsored isn't the cool thing. Doing what's right and working hard is the cool thing.
Sure.
And a lot of people want the shortcut, right?
Yeah.
So if we just had this one little group of people, when I say little, 10, 20 manufacturers that are here, it doesn't need to be used all the time, but it'd be like, just so everyone knows, driver A, here's the contract, here's today. This driver has left and didn't even give us warning.
Right.
Want to alert every other brand that is participating in the blacklist that he did not uphold his contract.
Right.
And that at that point, it's up to company B to be like, fuck it, I'll take the money. Like
Yeah.
or it'll be like everyone bands together and be like, I won't even take them on for another year after that because they need a year of, learning that you made a bad decision.
Yep.
I just think that the memories in our industry are so short.
Sure.
That we're not doing our own checks and balances.
Yeah.
And we're letting it get out of control.
Yeah.
I know that there's other companies that, quote unquote bottom feeders that are going to come in and scoop them up.
Right.
And there's people that are trying to break in. But I mean, I know how hard it is. A-Main was already getting huge when I jumped in. The first thing I did 5 months into starting my company was start a website.
Sure.
I had nobody. I did it all myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked my butt off. And if anyone thinks they're just going to step into an industry that is already established and just they're the big dog, I mean, it's tough.
It is very, yeah.
I just think we need to work together. There's so many great companies, no matter what anyone thinks of any one of them,
Mm-hmm.
that have really put in the work, and we
Yeah.
need to protect that.
Yeah.
And I consider myself at the bottom of good companies. Like I'm modest. I'm not trying to say we're anything
Sure.
more than what we are, but I know what it's like to get shit on. You guys probably get shit on
Sure.
multiple times a year, and every company will. And
Yeah.
I just, those people need to be kind of kept at check.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some things that can be done, and I think that would be a really good thing to happen. The other thing that's going back to that is, you have these guys that sign a contract, they run for you, they sign with, say they sign with you or they sign with us, and one of their buddies has a company that they deal with, and then they start making competing products. We're like, hey, just so you understand, you're under contract with us, and you need to run everything that we produce. So we don't allow you, we're not allowing you to go run a competing product just because it's your buddy or because they had it first. And you'd be amazed how pissed off people get when they do that.
Yeah.
Even the other brand, it's like, okay, we make, this tire and this wing, and, another guy just copies it or makes it. And then we're like, hey, you can't do that. And then first thing they do is they'll screenshot that, and then they'll send it to that other competing company and say, hey, look what they're doing. And then they get pissed at us. It's like we're only trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to force them to honor their contract, and then we're the bad guys for trying to force that.
So let me ask you a question, because that's you bring up a good point. I'm a racecraft guy. Okay, I love JConcepts. I don't have any problem with any company, and I do believe that, and this is my question. I believe that everyone should be able to run what they want if it doesn't compete with another brand. Mm-hmm. But let's just say this, for instance, because I know that the racecraft flock foil was kind of a big topic for Chase, and who's a good friend of mine.
Sure.
So if I was coming to JConcepts to get sponsored, and I was to say, I have a deal with Racecraft, and I run their flock foils. They only have a few products, and the only one that goes on a car is a flock foil. Prior to me signing the contract, could that be put into the contract that I could run it, so that it wasn't like I signed the contract before I had a flock foil deal? I know like more powerful guys that get paid, like a Dakota can come in like, look here, these people pay me to run this, so I'll run all this, but I have to be able to run that. Like, they have a little more power. But if someone was to come in and you say, yeah, we would love to sponsor you or put you on this team level,
right?
But they had already prefaced their, like, here's my resume, here's my sponsors, and one of those was already
right
part of their program. And I'm not even just racecraft. We can go anywhere.
Yeah,
as long as it's not like the majors. I know you guys are bodies, tires, wheels. Like, those are some majors. It's a big money maker. That's where your margins are. But like, for instance, going racecraft, just the front wing, you make a front wing, but they were already running it. Would you exempt that if that was part of their coming on?
It's a possibility. If it went that direction, I think we would be willing to entertain it. So if they were already with that company and then came to us and wanted to run for us, then there could be some discussions. But if it's the opposite, where they're already a driver of JConcepts,
if you sign a contract saying you got to run it, then you've got to run it at least until the contract.
So let's say the driver was already a JConcepts driver. We made front scoops 10 years ago or however long it's been. It's but it's a Lexan. It's not a 3D printed part. So if they're already a JConcepts driver, then they decide to take on the flock foil, as an example, then that's where we have an issue.
Sure.
Instead of saying, hey, this is, a really cool part, are you guys interested in making something similar? Not copy it, but something similar. And we've all copied, everyone's copied everybody in this industry. We've done it. They've done it. It doesn't matter. Not flock foil, but just in general.
But you wouldn't copy a flock foil and put your logo in the same spot and then make it look exactly the same, right?
But it's like the flock foil. Their first one looked just like one of our Lexan ones. It was like almost identical, but there wasn't a whole lot you could do. That's the way it fit the car. It just had to fit the car that way, and so we were okay with that. More power to you. But then when our, say a contracted driver for us then starts to run for flock foil, then that's where we have an issue.
Gotcha.
But if it was the other way around, like you said, if they're somebody that's friends with, with flock foil, they were running it and then they wanted to run our tires, then I think that's where you could, have some dialect there, talk about it and discuss it. And maybe that would be an option. So,
yeah. So I mean, that makes more sense because, I obviously I see what unfolds on the social media and stuff. And, I get a little kick out of a lot of it because some of it's just kind of like, why are we wasting time? We could all be making more money if we just, do our own thing. But, I do see both sides of that story just because we are in a hobby brand.
Sure.
Right. So, but that goes back to maybe you just shouldn't be sponsored.
Yeah.
If you're not going to honor your contract. Now, if you don't have a contract and you're running, racecraft flock foil and you send a resume to JConcepts, I would say let them know what you run. Mm-hmm. Don't hide anything. Don't if that's a product that you like to run, let them know. It doesn't matter
Right.
if it's you guys or any brand,
Mm-hmm.
because a brand that doesn't have a front scoop might be coming out with one.
Right.
And you need to let them know, like, you're already in bed with this company,
Exactly.
and you want to honor your contract with them as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, I find that whole scenario complicated in the sense of people get upset but don't understand, like, we all expect our people to live up to what they're signing up for.
Right.
Goes back to the whole list of, like, this guy did not honor his contract, you know.
That's what's really hard, because what's cool about, or what's cool is those guys, they're just having fun with, the flock foil. He's just having fun. He's putting out a cool little product. He's having fun with his promotion stuff. And I think it's really cool and fun. And, he's doing, like, these little fun videos and pictures, and it's really cool. And it's just fun for him. But then at the same time, he has to realize that it's a really serious business for us. We don't have a second job. That's what puts food on our table. Everyone, always, those guys make things in, China or Taiwan. And it's like, yeah, but we got 20 something employees that we're putting food on their table,
warehouse,
in their warehouse, and all
marketing,
the
paying drivers.
Yeah,
and
it's a huge deal. So in order for us to do that, we have to make products cheaper some way, somehow. We are not established 40 years ago like Proline, who, they started small, they had their own machines, and they slowly built so they can make stuff in America. So it makes it tough for people to kind of understand. They're like, oh, we're just having fun, we're making some cool products. Why can't, your guy run our, whatever part? It's like, well, they're under contract. They already run for us. So you're making a product that's very similar to ours. So we can't allow it. And then they get mad at us. So that's the tough part.
Yeah.
So maybe if there was a little more dialogue with that maybe that would help.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would hate to see any company get shut out if somebody was like an ambassador for them prior to taking on something else. Yeah. But I get if I'm JConcepts and that person has nothing and you take them on and then all of a sudden they want to run it, but you're already making a similar product. Right. Like that, I think if it's done properly, and I would assume people who are business people and fair people would understand. Yeah. I mean, obviously, a company like Racecraft isn't out paying drivers, but they did create, Chase created a brand that people enjoy.
Yeah, I
agree.
And
they want to be part of that brand.
Sure.
And whether or not it's making a lot of money or no money, it's still a product that sure. people like and they represent. So, like, I get JConcepts' point of view. I've stuck up both ways because I believe that you should be able to run what you want if as long as everyone is in the know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if Dakota was already running a flock foil, you guys want Dakota to run tires. I'm sure that's not going to be a deal breaker if he's already like contracted. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's different when it comes to the lower level guys because that's where the money is made. So it's I mean I don't know the entire story, but I know of a brand that you guys quarreled with or Jason quarreled with over the last couple of years, and it's kind of like everything one does, the other one's like, well, fuck you, I'm gonna do it too. And, and like brand rivalries are good. Mm-hmm. They are good. Yeah. Like part of me at one point in my career in my tenure has been like, I want to start a fucking war with somebody. Just right. But I don't, like I try not to, and I try to be friends with everybody. Yeah. But brand wars are cool. I sit back and watch those. Sure. So I ain't gonna lie. I get a kick out of some of the stuff. But
and there's going back to that, there's things like you said that we may already be working on something. We already have it in the works, but since we're such a big company that do a huge amount of things, we can't just say, okay, we're just going to concentrate on this and put all our effort into this one thing and make it happen like that. So it takes some time. So if this company over here, they're a small company. They can dedicate 100% of the time coming out with, a bearing or, whatever it is, a certain part. They can hammer it out really quickly. Whereas we, have 15 other things happening at the same time. So we're still trying to come out with that, but it takes a little longer. So if someone's already running for us and they're like, oh, well, I want to run, XYZ's, bearing or this or that, we're like, well, we're working on that, but it's going to take a little time. So, we really can't have you sponsored by them. If you want to buy that or, buy their product and support them that way, that's good. But if you're going to be a sponsored driver for both, that's not going to work.
Right.
And that's where the rivalry and the battle came from, that's how it happened.
Yeah.
So then they're like, well, fuck you. I'm going to come out with all the same stuff that you have. And, it's not fun to see, but it ends up working out, I think, for both.
Yeah.
The one particular person you're talking to, they're doing great. They got a lot of cool stuff. They've copied some of our stuff. We've copied some of their stuff, or we've copied someone else's stuff, or, tried to take what we saw was working and make it,
put a
better,
spin on it.
Put a spin on it and make it better. I mean, you had the I think it was Ultimate Racing had the little O-rings for the inserts.
We talked about that Nats in Phoenix.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
We're like, I had someone come up to me at a race and they're like, have you ever tried these things? They didn't even tell me what brand they were. They're just like, have you ever tried these? I'm like, no. Like, they're really, it really makes a difference. And so we tried them and like, well, it's just a O-ring that, you could buy from anywhere.
Yeah.
So we're like, sure, we'll make them.
But do you believe there's a difference in this is a really good topic for me, because my small company, Assault RC, which I started the same year I started Beach RC, we obviously do have some products like charge leads and connectors and shit that is all the same as anyone can buy.
Sure.
But we have proprietary stuff that either I design or someone that's within our circle designed, and I either bought it from them or pay royalties on, but it's proprietary. Like, it's not anywhere close to other people's stuff, right? So if somebody was to come in and, let's just say, tires are a bad example, but let's just say someone copies the P1 body to a T, right?
Which has happened.
Right, but
P2.
That's like, or P2, but that's like the biggest slap in the face compared to like somebody making a reflex that is a different iteration of a tire that's already been out there. Like, you designed the P2, right? So I'm speaking of, it only has happened to me 2 times, but the most recent concept was our tire jig.
The tire jig, yeah.
Which Carbon, whatever the fuck, in Germany, totally ripped it off.
Yeah.
Like, to a T.
To a T, yeah.
And it's like, you didn't make it. Tire jigs weren't new when the one we have, Roger Windling designed it.
Yep.
And
he actually gave me one before you guys had one.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of, hey, this is a cool idea. And we didn't pick it up, but you did.
Well, here's the thing. The year that me and him met, he had it to where it's screwed. It was a screw.
That's the one, yeah.
I told him, I was like, that's too much work, bro. I was like, this has to be a quarter turn cam lock, something. And we went to the drawing boards. That's when we did that. Okay. So we didn't make the first tire jig. We made one that was better.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So if I was to copy the clamshell and call it something else, I'd be like, that's just, to me, that's,
right.
Why are we even doing this? So products evolve. When you get direct copied, I don't have the money to go suing people and stuff like that. I'm not Traxxas and whatnot. But when does that become an issue? Because obviously everything's an iteration off something else. So for me, I just think everyone should have great ideas. Everyone can 3D print now. I mean, the technology we have between 3D scanning, printing, the kids that are going to school and getting smart off these CAD programs. I mean, everyone's making cool stuff.
Yeah.
Just don't copy it to a T.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're going to make it for yourself and whatever.
Yeah, whatever,
That's fine.
Yeah.
whatever. If you don't want to spend the money with a company that worked hard to like develop something and you can make it, good for you. But don't be like, hey, I got a new brand I'm coming out with, and it's the exact same thing as
Right.
brand A.
Yeah.
You know, like what is it that you think? Why does this industry allow that to happen so much? Like when does that stop?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, that's where it comes to, you know, you got to have good people. Like, you know, you would never do that. It's something you wouldn't do. And some people are just assholes. They just don't care. Like they're going to rip something off and they're just going to sell it as is. And that's the way it works. But you would never do that because you have more pride in what you're doing. And, you know, you took something and made it better and, you know, moved on. So I don't know what the answer is there. I really don't.
Is it just because we're such a small industry that we really don't have the power to go after people, or do we not have the manpower, the time? Like
well, that's a lot of it. You know, people think we're big companies and we're making, you know, all this money, but really we're not. You know, companies, you know, some of the big companies are doing very well, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's not a huge company. So there's only a few companies, like you said, Traxxas, maybe Horizon. They could probably go after people. And I know, like, they started the ARMA thing, which was huge. There were some conflicts back and forth, but they took what Traxxas was doing and did it. They also did it, but a totally different way, and they made it work.
Yeah.
And that's what you do with your jig, and, you know, we've done with other things. So I think it's just a quality of person, you know.
Yeah.
It just has to be, you know, they have to have some pride in what they do, and some people don't.
Yeah.
We actually had a driver that he wanted a better deal, and we just didn't think he was ready for it. So he left the team, and he started his own tire company. So he just got a, you know, Chinese brand company that was making tires for various companies, and they just put his name on it.
Yeah.
Just because we wouldn't give him an extra 5%.
I mean,
what do you do?
I welcome anybody, and I've said this from day one. If you can do it better, and you've got the time, and this is what you want to do for a living, go for it.
Yeah.
But the problem is, they fizzle out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like there's companies like JConcepts and Avid, and you know, there's a handful of very, very forward-thinking companies. I like to think that even though we don't come out with a lot of products and don't have a huge following, that even Assault is a very forward-thinking way of things. Like, for instance, everyone's doing wing buttons, right? In RC Project, very, very good. Like Stefano, I deal with him on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So smart, right?
Yep.
And there's not a lot of those companies. But like, for instance, Avid the other day comes out with that new wing button.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else like it. You know, they didn't just come out with an adjustable, oval-shaped wing button like other people have already done.
Right.
Right, a carbon, or, you know, they redesigned it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the cool, like, people should buy that.
Mm-hmm.
People should be rewarded for that.
Sure.
Just like when you guys come out with something that's totally different and new, yeah, that's been created, but this is a new way. It's better in a way of like lighter, or travels better,
Sure.
or, you know, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever the product is. I want to see people reward originality.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a small pie, and so many people trying to get a piece of it. Competition's great.
Mm-hmm.
We need it.
Yeah, we need it.
We need it.
Yeah.
But I don't think everybody should just start ordering, you know, stuff from China and because they can get on Alibaba or whatever that shit is. And, you know, it's taken years to develop relationships with companies to manufacture stuff.
Yeah.
You know, for myself, I can only imagine, you know, knowing Jason's been in this for his whole life, how long it's taken for him to develop.
Yeah.
I just don't know. we keep on talking about these things that are hard because you're in the manufacturing side of things. Like, I don't know how we fix it. I don't know if there are fixes for everything.
Yeah,
and I don't know if we, you know, we're not sitting here with the round circle of the round table of all the no's.
Sure.
But I know you know a lot about the backside,
Right.
you know, as I know a good amount of
Sure.
it. And it's just one of those, like, what do we do?
Yeah.
People, like you said, they think we make so much money,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
but they have no idea what we have to do
Yeah.
to make
No
any
idea.
money.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, some of the things that happen behind the scenes that they just don't know anything about. I mean, we've had thousands of pounds of rubber show up and it's no good.
Wow.
Like, what do you do? It's like, I guess you just make more. It's like, but you've just eaten the shipping costs, the amount of cost for the
time it's
rubber, the time. It's just,
yeah, that's
it's
time
crazy.
lost.
Yeah. So people don't see that side of it. So it makes it tough.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you guys produce all the bodies in house.
Yeah, the bodies are done in house. Yep. So we produce, you know, the molds. We form everything. You know, it's packaged. Everything's done there in the warehouse.
So, on a day when everything's moving smoothly, how many bodies can JConcept push out in a day?
It's hard to say. I don't know if I can say the number, but it's hundreds. Yeah.
So,
And like in the short course days, which the short course bodies was, I mean, we actually had a custom built machine just to try and make more short course bodies. And we were running 2 shifts just for short course.
wow.
That's how big it was. So we had our normal machines that you could make one at a time. Then we made a special made machine that could make multiple ones at a time. So you could only imagine how big
Yeah,
this machine
it's
had to be.
be pretty big because
So
the amount of
the
Lexan for a short course
Yeah.
that's a lot of.
Yeah, it's massive. So, that was just, I mean, it was crazy. So, you know, we 8 to 5 and then, you know, 5 to, you know, whatever it was, and just making short course bodies. Like we had 2 dedicated machines just for that.
Wow.
So, you know, losing short course was a big hit for a lot of us. I'm sure you were selling tons of short course tires and bodies and
Yeah.
accessories, and you know, and you probably still sell slashes and all that, obviously.
Yeah.
But the racing side of it was huge for all of us.
When Beach RC opened up, 4-wheel drive short course was rocking.
Yeah.
However, right after that, e-buggy just
Took
blew
off.
up.
Okay.
And, you know, you get the same quality incomers from short course, 4-wheel drive short course that went to e-buggy.
Mm-hmm.
So you have these guys that's the natural progression,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah, it went away pretty quick because we kind of opened up at the back end of the boom,
Okay.
but the front end of e-buggy, and so I love short course, still do. Don't race it anymore, but love the concept of
Sure.
it. And I'm not gonna lie to you, man. This new Max Slash, it's what we were talking about last year at Nationals. So before the whole truggy body thing was a thing,
Mm-hmm.
last year at Chico, and I think this was after the meeting, like we were all talking, it's like, we need to bring back gas, or we need a nitro 8th scale short course truck.
That's what Jason wants too.
And don't kill me. Don't fucking cut off my head. All right, people. Do away with truggy so that there is definitely separation of class.
Yeah.
So there's nitro buggy 8th scale and nitro short course.
Yeah.
8th scale.
We're 100% behind that.
And this Max, there was even to a point where like we had a discussion going on Facebook. This wasn't between a group. This was like a thread that was popping up and people kept commenting on of like, well, yeah, there's RC8s, you know, back in the SC8
Right.
days.
Which that thing was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the electric version and whatnot. And then people are like, well, I've got a converted nitro version. Like, you should drive it and blah, 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 blah. Well, Traxxas just drops this Max Slash, this 6S.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, we need a class of this now.
Yeah.
We need to start promoting a stock Max Slash class at race time, you know, my races, whatever. Let's get this class going. People, I know it's Traxxas, and that scares some people away for whatever
Right.
reason. But the parts are available. The shit's gonna be tough.
Yep.
Like, let's just do a stock. No aftermarket products yet.
Mm-hmm.
Just it has to be stock.
Yeah.
Change the body. paint it the way you want, and that's it.
Yeah,
Tires,
I agree.
tires.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start this 8-scale short course. Let's let people duke it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
and keep the pro guys out of it, because
Yeah.
that's what, like when the stock slash class started, it was so big, it was doing so well, and then you're like, oh well, I'm gonna run that, and then there's 2 or 3 of us running it, and we're just putting laps on these guys.
start stinking it up.
And then stinking it up. We just as racers, we ruin things
Yeah.
so quickly now.
Once you get competitive,
Yep.
it doesn't matter what you race,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Like you're competitive, you
doesn't
want to
matter what it
win,
is.
and if you're better than the guys that are in the class, you're just gonna beat them.
Yep.
And yeah, it frustrates people.
Yeah. So I like that idea. I think that would be really cool. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen the emails, but Jason, when the truggy stuff was happening, that was one of the suggestions Jason made to Roar. He's like, look, there's some really cool shit out there. Let's try and make that, happen. Like the 8-scale short courses and stuff. I'm like, that, if you want to go for scale look and, realistic stuff and that, let's try and make it happen. We'll, Jason's like, we'll sponsor the event. We'll be totally behind it.
I think the body, like you guys just came out for short course. What do you call the new body? It's square looking score.
Yeah, I think it's a F2 or something.
That new F2 scaled up to fit the max slash
Yeah.
would be the most scale looking core truck right now. And
Because it was based off a real truck.
Yeah,
It was-
exactly.
It was based off of one of Kim Block's trucks, I think.
and the fact that they're 6S and they can make these big jumps that we have A-scale buggies hitting, they would be, I believe it would start a whole new fad.
Yeah. And we need something like that to happen again.
We do.
Yeah.
We need something that kind of breaks up a little bit of it brings more people in a sense, but
Mhm.
also breaks up what we already talked about, the look of 2 big different buggies.
Sure.
We can keep Truggy. I mean, Truggy's awesome. I've really enjoyed running it lately, and it's a national
Yeah.
class.
The E-Truggy class, I can't believe how big that's getting.
Wow, that
Like,
thing!
you
Like,
go to the race time events and, the big 8-scale outdoor events, the E-Truggies are huge now.
did you think that when you first saw an E-Truggy, like it would be where it is?
No. I just thought it was a basher thing, and, it was just not going to be a race class.
That's turned into one of the biggest classes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the benefit, which brings up a whole nother topic that's been discussed a million times, and it's just the horse that's been beaten so many times. But it's only one class right now, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Like open and a sportsman. That's it. You don't have intermediate. You don't have pro. You don't. So I think that really helps the class.
Yeah. It's
If
getting split more often
and
now.
now the pros are starting to trickle in there,
Yeah.
and that's gonna hurt.
They're getting track time.
Yeah, they're just doing it for track time, but they're so good that it ruins it for a lot of people.
Do you think that at races like the majors, I'm going to call the majors, the race times, the Joey races, let's just say there's another 5 races a year, right, in A scale. Do you think at these majors that pro drivers should only be able to sign up for X amount of classes, like to keep it fair for them?
I would agree with that. I think limiting what they can run is a good thing.
So 3 class max.
Yeah.
So you can't run an E-Truggy or a Truggy. They could choose one
Right.
for whatever track time they
Yep.
want. Or maybe a brand wants to focus on winning an E-Truggy win or a night, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see that, or, a rule that, and you can only run 1 class per car too, which, I think Roar's
buggy
doing that
is-
now.
yeah.
Lance does that at his races. So
I think Joey's even kind of pulled
yeah, I
back
think-
on that.
yeah.
Like you can't run 40 plus if you run pro.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you
they
still,
call it the Drake rule.
yeah. Which I mean, it's to be fair.
Yeah,
He's good enough still to make A mains,
Mhm.
but you give him another chance to get track time.
sure.
That's I agree with it.
Yeah,
And Roar's doing like that's here. If
Yep.
you run 40 plus 2-wheel, you can't run 17.5 or mod. And I like it because it keeps it even.
yeah,
No one can just sign up for 4 or 5 classes
Yep.
to get track time for their favorite class
Right.
or whatever.
yeah. So I like that idea. Yeah,
The e-truggy thing to me has been kind of a phenomenon, because kind of going back to what I said, it was 4-wheel drive short course, then it was e-buggy, where you'd have the sportsman guys that are kind of like erratic
Sure.
and learning, and we all need to step in and help.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's kind of like, because truggy's easier to drive, like now e-truggy is turned into the old e-buggy 4-wheel drive short course.
Yeah, I agree.
And you like you said, basher class, it is, but it's a feeder.
Sure.
We're seeing these guys buy truggies, and then like, okay, well, now I want to run a buggy or a nitro buggy or a nitro truggy.
Yep.
So we know it's a gateway into other things,
Yeah.
but you also know that if you're marshaling a sportsman truck race,
Yeah.
Keep your head on a swivel type
Exactly.
of situation.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing guys like Lutz and Fee, and then, Joe Bornhorst and Knaus when they come to these bigger races, and if there's not a second class or a level, then it is going to discourage the guys that are new.
Yeah.
I think we did it at the Fall Brawl last year. We did an open in a sportsman e-truggy, just to level it out.
Right.
So, how many weekends a year? And you're married, right?
I am.
Not to get too much in your personal life, but how many weekends a year are you away from home?
It's not as crazy as it has been in the past, but it's probably, out of the 52, it's probably in the mid to upper 20s. So it's not as bad as some of these pro drivers, but it's up there.
Yeah.
But I mean, my wife and I, high school sweethearts, when we started dating, I told her about RC. I'm like, RC comes first, because, when you're just dating in high school, you're just dating different girls or whatever. And that was like my thing. I'm like,
this is what I do.
This is what I do. This is like my priority. It's, kind of like a job, which at that time, I was making a little bit of money. I wasn't paid a salary, but I was making bonuses and things like that. And she even raced with me a few times, which was really cool. And then she just understood how it works.
Well, now it's your living,
but now
as
it's
well.
my living, yeah. So
that's one of the reasons I started Beach RC.
Sure.
It allowed me to say, well, this is work now.
Yeah, yeah. It let you play, but still, still make a living and work. But.
So what's your favorite time of year or travel? Like, do you like Silver State, or do you like knowing that you're going to a Worlds each year? Like, what's your favorite part of the travel?
It's usually specific events. Like, I really always like to come to the Masters, because it's always just a fun race. I mean, there is a serious side to it, but it's always super fun, even regardless of I'm racing or not, or if I like the track or not. That's one of the events I always like to go to. Silver State was cool. Obviously you're in Vegas, that sort of thing, but I'm not a gambler or any of that. So I don't have a huge appeal, but I like when the races are very organized, scheduled. You start and finish pretty much the same time every day. So I like that, which is cool about this race. So, P&B I used to hate, but now I kind of made it a point to put a schedule together and tell my drivers, and, everyone's like, look, I'm going to get here at 8:00 and I'm leaving at 9:00 at night. And that's just the way it is. If you need something after that, you just have to wait.
It's on you.
And now I have fun at that event, because I used to stay there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Trying to help people, and 16, 18-hour days.
It's tough.
It's tough. So AMS was kind of this. AMS used to be my favorite race of all the events, just because I liked the building, I liked the dirt. It was just, everything was really cool about it. And then it got so big, you were there till 2 in the morning and then they tried to scale it back a little bit, and that brought the fun in, but they make less money. So it's hard to, say, but I really like AMS.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite races as well. So the Worlds are super cool. You get to go there, but they're, I think they're too long.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah. I don't think the races need to be that long. That's what's cool about the European National Series type races. They're only 3 days.
Yeah.
They run 2 or 3 classes, and they get it done in 3 days. There's not all this crazy amount of, practice, but it's different. They still have clubs over there, which we don't have here anymore. Most of them temporary tracks or club tracks for, someone like you here, especially at a roar event, you don't make a lot of money. So you need that extra day of practice, which is your day to, make a little bit of money. And people just have no idea how expensive it is to make these races. They think you're killing it at these events.
Yeah.
So I think our races are too long. Like this race, I think is too long, the roar event.
Yeah.
So I would,
because we could probably, for a 10 scale roar national, we could probably do the open practice Thursday, do one round of 2-minute drill on Friday. You could probably do round of seeding and a round of qualifying Friday, 3 rounds of qualifying Saturday, and mains on Sunday.
Yeah, that's
so
how
you cut out
INS
a whole one day.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, like you said, we don't make a whole lot of money at this race. And that day, that Wednesday, is a big day.
Sure.
It's an extra, hopefully $1,000 or whatever.
Right. Yep.
And it pays for the track build or whatever. Doesn't matter what it pays for. There's
Right.
just not a lot there, so
Yeah,
you get what you
exactly.
can. But we also are conscious of the people that have to travel in. I mean, we're a destination area, so that's why we actually did the swap with the carpet nats this year with Roar, because number one, if you came here in July, it's going to be hotter than Hades, and the hotel rooms are going to be $300 a night or more. So the beauty of coming to Myrtle Beach, and that's why Masters does so well, because you can get oceanfront for $60-$70 a night,
Right.
whereas you're going to pay $150 a night to go to Pundunk, Iowa,
Right.
where there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to be conscious of the travel.
Yeah.
When you've got a team that's paying, 10, 15 guys travel for nationals, or if you got, tire companies that have to figure out how they're going to get all the product there, make sure that, this is a drive for you, but
Right.
not all of them are drives. You have
Sure.
to ship tons of boxes to make sure you have everything
Yeah.
you need. So, yeah, I think cost does play a big role in how we. But the Worlds, I got to experience my first one 2 years ago in person for Spain, and I would be lying to you if I said I'm disappointed it's going back, because I had such a good time
Sure.
there. I'm looking forward to going back, but I like to travel. So for me, anytime that I can get away and just, I'm different in the sense of a lot of people. You guys have traveled so much, been to so many countries. For me, when I go to Worlds, like, I won't do it this time because I've already been there, but we're going to take a few days, me and my wife, or maybe I take my whole family, and we're going to vacation
Sure.
and use it as a double-edged, sword for us to enjoy, but also work.
Yeah.
I had asked Jason at PNB, like, what'd you think of, he's like, I'm just going to get in, going to get out, because,
Yeah.
you guys were there already and,
Sure.
and travel a lot more than I
Yeah.
have. Did you like Spain? Was that one
I
of,
actually didn't go. I didn't get to go.
I thought,
Yeah. So
man, that's weird. I couldn't, in my mind, I thought you were there.
yeah, I mean, we see each other at so many events.
Yeah.
But, I didn't get to do Spain. So
Do you get to do this one, or do you know yet?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I'm thinking about asking if I can go, even if I have to pay my own way, or at least pay part of it or something, because I would like to go. I usually don't get to do the 8 scale worlds if they're out of the country, or 10 scale worlds out of the country. I get to do the US ones, but I haven't been able to do like the international ones as a representative for JConcepts. And I've done it as a racer, as a pro racer. I've been to several different countries for different, world events as a racer. So that was, that was super cool.
It's obviously, this, an amazing track.
Yeah.
In Spain, very hospitable. Not just, I did it, my wife and I started at Barcelona, and we drove all the way down.
Oh, cool.
And so we got to see a lot.
Sure.
But, just the country and the people there were, I've been to a lot of countries and traveled a lot myself. So it was one of my favorite places I ever been.
Okay, that's cool.
So if you do get the opportunity, and the Ronas are going to let you, I would say go for sure.
That's the other part, that if the race was a little shorter, it would make it, I think, a little easier to do that too.
Yeah.
Like, get to go and vacation a day or two ahead of time or a day or two after would help, because when the events are 11 to 14 days for one class, to me, that's just too much.
It's ridiculous.
Like, I think Italy was like 14 days or something, because they didn't have a warm up. So they allowed like 3 or 4 days of open practice. I mean, come on.
But don't you think at that point we could send our guys 3 or 4 days after and they would still be fine?
Yeah.
I mean, they would be.
Yeah.
We know that, but like in their minds, like the drivers are going to have a little bit of a panic in their minds, thinking that the other guys are getting more track time.
Yeah, that's the tough part. When you go to a lot of the international tracks, European tracks are permanent tracks. And if they do change them for the Worlds, it's very minimal. So that's the part where the U.S. drivers kind of, balk at it a little bit, because they feel like they have a huge advantage of that, which, I mean, when they come here, obviously, the U.S. drivers have an advantage on certain tracks because the same reason. They've been there, 4 or 5 times a year, and it's the layout's going to be different, but the driver stand, the surrounding areas, where you eat, where you sleep, all that stuff is familiar. So,
yeah.
That makes a difference to guys.
Well, did you hear the same thing that I did, that this year, or the Worlds, that being that it's going back to the same track, that they're going to have to do 100% track change? Did you hear that?
That's what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously that is good for the world side of things.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, it makes it more quote unquote fair. But what about like the concept of having Worlds in arenas in places like what Dave does and other things, where no matter what, it's guaranteed race. The track's always going to be fresh for every single person, because it's a build just for that event for one week or whatever. Like, what's your thoughts and opinion on that?
I would love to see that. I
know they've done it in the past. Like,
yeah,
Saxon
did it in Vegas. Yeah, he
and
did it in the parking lot of one of the casinos, and I was doing on road then, so I wasn't following any off road at all at that time. But I think that's the kind of thing that would be super cool. Or like, Silver State, the way they do that would be amazing to do a Worlds like that, or P&B type of, facility would be amazing for it. So yeah, I would love to see that, but I don't know if they have stuff like that in Europe. Like, I don't like the cost, or I don't know what the logistics would take to pull something off like that.
But I mean, you got a place like HRCR, and beautiful facility. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you've got Chico, like world class. So those two world class facilities. You got LCRC, one of the coolest East Coast tracks in the country. Just really rad. But they're permanent facilities, and it's going to cost them a shit ton of money just to put on. Yeah. Because of what they have to have or do or whatever, if they don't have it, which those tracks do. But like, to go into an arena that nobody has an advantage, the Americans would seem to have an advantage because they race these types of events on a regular basis. But Juan and Boots and these guys have proved us, in Runafolk, that's not really the case.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like, we had a good chance of winning Worlds at Spain a couple years ago. Dakota was one of the fastest guys there. Mayfield made the main. Nicole was in the main. Like, it wasn't like, even though Europeans won it, they didn't just dominate them.
Right.
Like, we had representation and a chance.
Yeah, there was maybe 1 or 2 poor choices from each of those U.S. drivers that probably cost them a chance to win. Like, I really think Dakota would have been battling for the win, if not could have won that race, had he run a certain tire in the semi. Because at that event, right at the end, they realized a clay compound tire was faster, but he played it safe and ran a long wear tire in the semi. So then, he did make a mistake on the first lap or first couple laps, and that cost him. probably making the directly into the main.
Right.
But then in the last chance, he put the clay compound on, and it was just
dominated.
destroyed.
Yeah.
And then put the clay compound in for the main and went all the way up to the front. Got, was the fastest car on the track for most of the race. Him and David.
Yeah.
Because Hot Race kind of figured it out as well. So they also put clay on, and then they were just Mayfield, Dakota. They were, battling for top 3 for most of the race before, Dakota had a few issues in the pit and
Yeah.
found a plug or
the
something.
plug,
Yeah, popped the plug. So, they had their shots, and they had never, they didn't go to the warm up. They had never been there, and
and that track had been in that shape for
a
couple years.
Sure.
And they were supposed to change it more than they did. It was kind of just like a pipe change or something in one section. So, I mean, not taking anything away from the Baldos and how amazing that track was. What an event! The whole event was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, they did a fantastic job. It makes me want to just like, no matter, I don't know how many people are going to be going, but I want a resume in and go as a racer.
Sure.
I think I could, not finish last.
Right.
And, use my opportunity as one time to go to a world championship and race in it. But yeah, I think about that. It opens a whole new set of opportunity if the committee who chooses worlds would not just be specific to a permanent track.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it is.
Yeah. I have no doubt there was politics involved. I mean, from the stories that I've heard and, listen to some of the people that are in the know, and there was definitely some games played, and it's...
Yeah, there were some games played with this choice, too, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
This one was, from what I do know from the little bit of the inside, was FIMCA really didn't have a chance after Brazil.
Right.
It felt like they didn't have a chance after Brazil said that they can't get the permits and whatever.
Yeah.
I hate that Brazil waited so long. Like, this should have been at the first of the year. Like, if they didn't have the permits or whatever, it was already done. It would have given a few extra months to vet another FIMCA style. Like, Mexico really wanted the Guadalajara track, which, from what I understand, they have the money, the backing. They had the manpower to get whatever needed to be done. And I don't know how long it takes to get back to FIMCA and let them have the opportunity to bid on that or whatnot. COVID messed a lot of that up too, so, and I believe America's the next block.
They are. Yeah.
So like we go Spain, and in 2 years or in Spain this year, we should be announcing who gets the worlds or how, in America. So, wow, like where's that going to be?
Yeah.
And like the anticipation's pretty, is A-Main going to get it with all their new, shiny stuff they got going on? Can HCRC like take this opportunity with Nats this year and like just blow it out of the water and say like, we have the facility for that.
Mm-hmm. Or does someone step up like a Dave or,
yeah.
That would be, I
Joey.
Joey, exactly.
Paris.
Like, it'd be so cool if one of them well, even if they did a temporary track.
Yeah, like a Silver State style.
So
deal.
you don't have it at Paris, but Joey puts the event on with, a facility that he, can have a covered facility and do that. It would be super cool. I mean, you remember Neo Buggy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were calling that the Indoor Worlds because it was just awesome.
Every year, all the top guys were there.
Yeah.
I mean, Americans, all Europe.
And the Americans did really well because it was something that they were somewhat familiar to. So, Tebow won it like 5 or 6 times, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a good run.
Tebow had a really good run.
Yeah,
so.
The whole Neo Buggy thing fascinates me. Like, they tried, what was it, like XTR or something they did afterward? Like, when Phil stopped doing it, they called it something else. It was...
Yeah, someone else tried to do it, and then...
It's not going now, right?
No. They actually had it 1 year at where the Worlds are going to be in Spain. I think they had... Yeah, I think they had an event there. As a Neo Buggy event or something. But it was, originally it was on the Easter weekend, I think, and the kids were out of school, so it was a dorm, so you actually roomed right at
where the
track.
college kids
the
went,
college,
yeah.
So that was, I never got to go, but
it
looked really cool.
It was going when we opened up, but I was never even I wasn't even thinking about doing
Yeah.
international travel by
Yeah.
that time.
So something like that to me would be just awesome for a world event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
mean, I like
heck, go
fairness.
back to that. Go back to that event or to
Yeah.
that arena if it's available. You know, that would be super cool.
But we went back to the exact same place. Not now, like I said, I'm not butthurt about it because I enjoyed every bit of Spain, but there's plenty of tracks in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, why did we just end up back in this one
Yeah.
spot?
Yeah, there was actually a good point. You know, I don't like the way they convey their messages and stuff, but I listen to Max and JQ and Lefty's stuff every once in a while, and Max had a great point that they could have easily traded the e-buggy worlds with Portugal and Spain. They could have just swapped, so they could have done the nitro at that track, which would have been. They've already proven themselves they can handle a world class event. And then give Spain the e-buggy. And I think that was actually a really good idea. But
I was actually surprised Portugal didn't get it.
Yeah.
Because of the facility and the fact that they were prepared for it. And they, we already were at Spain, in Spain.
Yeah.
So I thought, in my mind, if FIMCA wasn't getting it, I thought personally Portugal would have gotten it.
Yeah.
I thought that was a pretty big shock.
Yeah. As a manufacturer, it's going to be much easier for us because now we know the surface, we know what to bring, what not to bring. So that's going to help us out. But as, just in fairness and, I think it would have been cool to do something else different.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for the drivers.
Selfishly, I want to go somewhere new.
Yeah, of course.
But in the same token though, I talked to Jason and Mayfield about this last weekend at PMB. They said the exact same thing. Like, I don't mind going back there.
Yeah.
Because now we know, and it could be worse. We could be in a place that sucks, or an area that's not good, and we know that the area is safe. We know that the track is going to be amazing. We know we can buy beer during the day, like at the track.
Yeah.
It was a really cool. And Europe's really. When I went to RCGP in Italy. The year that RCGP started, that was one of the things that I really took from it is they do things like I like to do it, where they serve beer at the track. They want to have a good time while taking stuff serious. So I do like the European way of doing it. Track surfaces, I'm an off-road guy, not a when it's 8-scale, I like to see big off-road type jumps and surface.
Which is it's really funny because years ago, the European tracks were the ones that were just gnarly.
Really?
I mean, they were so gnarly. And the U.S. tracks were always groomed and nice. And they used to always kind of make fun of us and, you guys can't.
Sissies.
Yeah, you're sissies. Yeah. Now it's completely 180 degree. It's completely opposite. Now all the European tracks are all oiled or sealed or, prepped. And then the U.S. tracks are the ones that are all bumpy.
We're the ones blowing stuff out and building big jumps and stuff.
And obviously they can do both.
Right.
It just funny. I mean, that's what they were known for. Where you run on what's there. There's no fixing it. There's no maintenance. Like, you ran on the track that was there. And if you go back and watch the videos and stuff from a lot of the Euros and the Worlds and stuff from back then, they were gnarly, like really gnarly tracks. And our tracks were always groomed and nice, and they'd redo them each night. And so I just thought that was kind of comical that it's switched.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm a history buff in the 11 years I've been doing this.
Right.
When I started doing RC at my younger age, like, I was not ever thinking this is where I was going to be.
Sure.
But in the last 10 years, I know a good amount of information and studied, been part of some of it. So. I do need to watch. I need to maybe not so, keen and know everything, but I would love to see like how it used to be.
Yeah.
Because we're totally, Fall Brawl now underneath the arena that we're doing the Fall Brawl at, the dirt that's there blows out.
Sure.
And it's pretty rad. We actually have to rebuild every night because it blows out bad. But the Fall Brawl used to be at the Badlands where it was hard pack, super fast clay. You're on detox or ellipse or whatever,
exactly.
So it's gone from one extreme to the other in just a year.
Sure.
But now it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And we get to, enjoy that. But I've always liked the rougher tracks, but I'm better on high traction tracks.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I like the challenge. I think it equalizes the drivers because everyone's trying to mitigate their situation.
Actually, one of the examples of that is I don't know if you knew about like the Vegas Worlds when they had it.
I watched it all happen.
Yeah. So like, did you see the warm up?
I did not see.
Okay, so the warm up was sugared, prepped, like it was basically an on-road track with jumps. I mean, it was so fast and the cars were just so dialed and it was just amazing. And a lot of the not a lot, but quite a few of the Euro guys came over and they're like, this isn't the Worlds. This, we can't have this. So then for the Worlds, they purposely didn't pack the track. Like they made it blow out. So it was just like, because the Euro guys were like, hey, this is BS, this isn't a Worlds, if Mar has these rules, you can't do this or you can't do that. And so they changed the entire event based on, the people saying, hey, this isn't the way it should be. And to me,
what did you say earlier? The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Exactly. And so that was really disappointing because when you go to the different countries, you should experience what their tracks are.
Their flavor. Yeah.
So like, if Mexico would have got it, their track gets rough and, gnarly and that's what we should experience. If that's what they're racing on all the time, then that's what we should experience. And then, the same thing with Vegas, like the way they kept the track normally was, groomed and nice and, really it was a beautiful facility. And then just for the Worlds, they purposely didn't.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was.
And Ronafolk won that race, right?
He did, yeah.
That was Ronafolk's big win.
Yeah, Tebow was really good there because it was, because Tebow loves he actually has
blown out
fun.
Specialist.
Yeah, he's a specialist, and he like thrives on it and enjoys it. A lot of people don't. Yeah, and that's why he does well at it. And
I've caught him complaining to Bobby and people like when they're fixing stuff on at a big race.
Yep.
And I get it. Like we don't repair anything on our track. We just water once a night when it comes to the beach RC. But we have our surface down. If we didn't fix the fall brawl every night, it would have been unraceable.
Yeah, that's how Silver State is as well.
So it's one of those situations where, like, of course we don't want more work, but we also want to make sure that every single person has a fair shot. Yeah. And the guys that can't handle their cars as well as the top guys, they need as good of a chance the next day. Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's what do you do though? I mean, racing's racing. Mm-hmm. If you show up at a track and you got two options: you can leave or you can stay. And then the other option you have moving forward is, do you come back or not?
Right.
So if you know a way a promoter does something or a track likes to do their prep work, if you don't like it, there's plenty of other ones.
Sure.
But when it comes to a world level, it should be the way that the world, or that who you chose as that block's representation.
Yep.
It should be run the way that they run it. Yep. No rules in place of how you got to do things. You chose them because they have a track record.
Exactly.
Of kicking butt, having a lot of entries, doing tracks, having big races. Right. In a destination location, hopefully, whatever.
Sure.
So let them do it their way with, your crappy other rules. Like I totally fucked Camden with a penalty in Spain as his pit man. I set him down like 1 second too late. I didn't even know. I couldn't hear them.
Okay.
And I set him down. I'm like looking up, and everyone set their cars down in the box, and I set him down, and they gave him a stop and go because of it.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't even hear them say whatever the command was to set the car down. Weird, going back to the common sense rules, like he didn't hit nobody. I wasn't fueling him. He didn't have more fuel. It was a common sense thing. It shouldn't have been. He got penalized for something that he didn't even do.
Sure.
Number one, he didn't hit nobody coming out of his box, cause any kind of wrecks that it didn't warrant a penalty. Mm-hmm. It was one of those stupid penalties that nobody should be assessed. Yeah. Right?
I remember watching it from here, and I saw guys trying to space themselves out, and they were getting penalties and warnings
Yeah.
because they did not want you to.
You had to be at pace all the time.
Yeah, that was crazy to me. It's like,
They did weird stuff.
Yeah,
there.
that's-
and then
that-
poor Thomas band. I mean, it was every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Team USA manager to inspection. It was. I mean, we were just getting just railed.
yeah,
Weights and widths and just. It was kind of like, okay, we talked all this shit about this track, so they're gonna make an example of us.
Sure.
Having to come to this track that doesn't get changed. So
Mhm.
now, screw the Americans. But I think they did. I think they did a fantastic job.
yeah.
I thought everything went.
Yeah, I mean, Jason, when he got back, he said it was an amazing facility. The whole event was awesome, and he's looking forward to going back.
That's awesome. I hope you get to go.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna talk to Jason about it and see if I can go.
Would this be a trip you take your wife, or if you are able to go, or
Probably not. She
No?
doesn't want anything to do with RC.
man, it's so funny
It's
because
so-
neither does my
yeah.
wife. She went to Spain and she came one day to practice, and I took her to the airport the next day. Like she was out, and I told her last night, I was like, "Babe, you really should bring Brinley up at least one day this weekend, so that everyone thinks I'm still married and have a family." I
Right.
talk about how I'm a family guy, but no one ever sees my family.
Right.
But we used to have a powder puff class on Wednesday nights, and she
Okay.
raced for a little while. But between how busy we are and someone has to get the kid to and from gymnastics
Sure.
and all this, I don't think she hates it, quote unquote. She's got better things to
Yeah,
do.
just no interest.
Nah, no,
That's how my
no
wife is. She
whatsoever.
doesn't hate it, but she just has no interest.
Yeah.
And like when we were dating, she would, she actually came and raced with me a few times. And I was actually going through my phone where I was showing Kevin some, old school pictures of stuff. And, I was like, hey, this, my wife and I, we were dating at the time, racing. And I would tell people, friends stories of, I was like, oh yeah, she liked racing. And, she's like, no, I just did that just to do something with you. It wasn't like because I liked it.
That's exactly what Tiffany
Yeah.
says. She's like, I would come on Wednesday nights because back then I was so focused on RC and my business that, like, unfortunately, I made family come second. And that creates rough tension between, especially when you have children. And she would say, that's the only time I get to see you. So yeah, I came up there and raced,
Yep.
and that put a lot of perspective in it for me.
Yeah.
I see a lot of guys on Facebook that, like, it's an addiction, right?
Sure.
A lot of people can have it, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, all kind of addictions.
Mhm.
RC for some people is a straight up addiction.
Yep. I agree.
And unfortunately they can't save themselves from it,
Mhm.
and it could ruin their family life, or they could have very financial strain. So I don't want to see that ever happen to any family. Like,
Right.
to me, the family part's the biggest.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people like get divorced and
Yeah, we've had this discussion before. The people ask me, what do you see that's different in RC, and I think this goes across the board. But one of the things that I've noticed is, guys in their 30s and 40s are actually coming to race to get away from their kids and their family, and I'm like, this is a family, sport or hobby.
yeah.
When I was a kid, it was tons of kids, and the dads were bringing their kids to do stuff with their kids. And now to me, it looks the opposite. It actually looks like the dads, are trying to get away.
It's like their release.
It's their release and their escape, which I guess is good for them mentally. But at the same time, it's like, get your kids involved and
Yeah.
let them, and sure, the kids have a lot of other things to do now. They got the computers and the
Things
phones.
are different.
It is just different. So I'm sure that's the part I don't understand because, I don't have kids. But like when Lance, he started back a 10 scale series
Yep.
this year, and he has a rookie class.
Yep.
And they have these
Spec cars.
team associated,
Yep.
RB10s, and he has 16 of them. And every race, he's sold out the entries for the class.
Yeah.
So, the the families are bringing their kids now. The wives are coming.
Yeah, it's
and
not costing them a bunch of money and having to do the upkeep and the maintenance.
Super cool.
I mean,
and I know Lance is, he had to buy those cars. I know you had to help him because, certain, like the bodies are like insanely expensive for whatever reason. So he's probably losing money on it, but he's bringing so many new people into the hobby, which is awesome. So
yeah.
Lance has been doing a great job with that.
Great job. Matter of fact, he brought all those RB10s to Palmetto a month ago.
Okay.
Just to maintenance them because they didn't have the time.
Right.
They came up a day early to get the stuff set up for Palmetto. And, we were talking about how it was going. He's like, it's going really good.
Yeah, I've been really impressed.
I would love to have my daughter come up here. But it's part of the reason I don't race a lot of my club race nights on Wednesdays is because the only night she doesn't have gymnastics, she's a competitive gymnast, is Wednesday nights. And on school nights, I can't bring her up, take her home at 10, 30, 11. I don't expect any family to, but some do, you know, like there's responsible parents and kids,
Yeah.
But if she showed just a glimmer that she wants to do it, I would be all over it.
Yeah.
But as the dad I am, I don't want to force her or, like this is my thing. But they love to travel. So like when we do have opportunities to travel, if there's a little RC involved, they'll go. They don't want to be at the track all day.
Yeah.
Like they're ready to go by the time we get there. So
yeah, that's cool.
Well, look, man, been a great talk.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate all your support. JConcepts support of all the events that we do. You guys are the sponsor of this year's Nationals for us. You're the sponsor of the Fuel Nats I see.
Yep.
You've always been part of Masters. I appreciate you being here for support. And yeah, man, like just keep on kicking ass. You guys are killing it.
Yeah, we enjoy it. And, people, I hope people see the dedication and the passion that, Jason and we have. Like, I'm obviously people sometimes think we're in it just for the money, but I mean, it's crazy the passion Jason has and the company has for RC. It's anything we can do to try and, support it and make it better. We try, and, we have our faults and we do things, differently, and it's not always the best way, but yeah, we love coming to your events and, going to all these events and supporting them. And so
the day it's wrong to make money as a business is the day I don't want to be in business. I mean, you guys should make money.
Yeah.
And when you are, when you're a benchmark that other people are trying to reach, there's no telling what people are going to say about you. And we can't, goes back to what we talked about earlier. I don't get upset what people say about me, and I'll be very candid with them if they want to talk about it. But there's now with this day and age with social media, everyone's got a voice, good or bad.
Yeah,
so,
good or bad.
I know. I think you guys are doing really good. I've had my druthers in the past.
Sure.
When it comes to like we talked about the teams and how how we get product and not able to get product and be able to sell. But in the same token, I can only imagine what it's like.
Yeah.
Because I do understand manufacturing and supply chain and stuff. So I think you guys are kicking ass. You're the brand that, people right now are chasing, and you've got the top drivers in the world. I mean, if not almost all of them.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. So
appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate everything.
Yep. All right, man. Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And that's it.
BeachRC.com, the racer's one-stop online hobby shop. Choose from all the popular brands and variety in stock with super fast shipping and great customer service. BeachRC.com still has the local hobby shop feel with all the benefits of the internet. BeachRC.com is the exclusive distributor for Ultimate Racing, S-Works, Pro Circuit Racing tires, Nitro Lux fuels, and Assault RC performance products. So fill up your cart and check out at BeachRC.com today.
la 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 hey 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 la 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 la